most ecom owners treat Google Ads like a slot machine. They put money in and just hope for the best. But this is the fastest way to burn your budget. Google search is the best place to find people who are actually holding their credit cards, ready to buy, but you need the right setup to find them. In this master course, I'm going to walk you through the complete Google search campaign setup step by step. I'll show you the exact settings to use so you can stop wasting ad spend and start getting results like these. I'm Liam, founder of Vulcan Digital. We're a premier Google Ads agency working with direct-to-consumer brands and retailers. And we've managed millions of dollars of ad spend in Google search campaigns, helping brands increase their net profit using paid search systems that actually work. With that said, let's get into the very first step of building profitable Google search campaigns, and that's keyword research. Keyword research is the foundation of every successful Google Ads campaign. Get it right and you'll reach customers who are ready to buy and create a cash printing machine. Get it wrong and you'll waste money on clicks that never actually convert. I'm going to walk you through the complete Google Ads keyword research process for 2026, including a complete walkthrough of the Google Keyword Planner tool. I'll show you how to filter, refine, and organize your keywords for maximum performance. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear, repeatable process for finding profitable keywords in any business type or industry. All right, let's dive in. So I am already in Google Ads Keyword Planner, and you can access the Keyword Planner by clicking Tools and under Planning, going to Keyword Planner. I'm going to click on Discover New Keywords, and I'm going to set my location here to the United States. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I am going to assume that I am an e-commerce business and I sell running bags. So running vests or hydration vests. I'll show a couple of examples of what I mean on the screen right now. And I also sell running belts that I can store maybe my keys or my phone in when I go for a run. So when I click on Discover New Keywords, I'll be met with the option to either start with keywords or start with a website. So that would be my website, for example. But in this instance, I'm going to start with keywords. I'm going to say running bag, running vest, running bag with hydration, and I'll say running belt. And I'll type in some of these really important core product terms and click on Get Results. And Google is going to give me information on some of the keywords that I provided. So running bag, running vest, running belt. And it's also going to give me some additional keyword ideas. So we can see Salomon running vest, Salomon are a brand, running backpack, running vest women, weighted vest for running, flip belt, more Salomon, and so on and so forth. And it's actually given me 3,830 keyword ideas. Now, that is a lot of keyword ideas. So what we're going to do is refine that. But first of all, I want to show you what information Google give us in relation to some of these keywords. So the first thing that it does is give us an average monthly searches. So it gives us a range. So running bag is 1 to 10,000 monthly searches, running vest 10 to 100,000 monthly searches, running belt is the same, and so on and so forth. It gives us a 3-month change. So are these terms increasing in popularity, and if so, by what percentage in the last 3 months relative to the 3 months prior? Year on year change then, are these terms getting more popular with each year that passes? Competition is next. So what level of competition can we expect to see on these particular keywords? So you can see they are all marked as quite high. Ad impression share then, if we were already running some of these keywords, Google would give us an indication of what percentage of the time we were actually serving for these keywords relative to how often we actually could. And then the top page bid, both the low and the high range, how much can we expect to be paying to serve at the top of the page? Generally, I kind of estimate somewhere in the middle to be a reasonable starting point for this. So in this instance, running vest, let's say, is top of page bid, low range is 45 cents, top of page bid, high range is $1.87. So about $1 is $1.10 is sitting in the middle between those two. So that would be maybe a reasonable place to start. And then under account status here, sometimes if we are running these keywords, it would just give us the indication that it is in account. So we know we're targeting them already. So we can sort these by monthly searches so we can get the highest volume queries. We can also search for the most expensive terms by sorting by the page bid. But what I want to do next is I want to refine these keywords because there are just far too many of them and I want to go looking for the best keywords possible. So I'll go up here to refine keywords and click on this, and it will give me this drop down menu of lots of different options. And the first is going to be brand or non-brand. So for the campaign, let's say that I'm looking to create here, I'm creating terms around my core products. So running bag, running vest, running belt. This is not a campaign that I want to either target my own brand name. It's not a branded campaign, but it's also a campaign that I'm not looking to target competitors. It's not a dedicated competitor campaign. So what I can do here is I can actually exclude all brands. So Salomon, Nike, Camelback, Nathan Sports, Adidas, Lululemon, etc. Then next up is I can get rid of belt. Now, flip belt, spy belt, I don't actually know what those mean. So for now, I'm going to keep them in. Are they brand names or are they type of running belts? So I'll have to look that up. Retailers is next. So Amazon, Rebel Sport, so I don't want to include those. So just be careful with other brands because sometimes it can catch terms that are actually technically not branded terms. So I can see here, for example, a camel bag would be another name for a hydration vest. So I might want to include that, and everything else there looks like a brand name, so I can keep those excluded. So I have gone there from 3,830 down to 1,900. So I've cut the list essentially in half. Now I can go on to accessories. So accessories, belt, bag, shoes. So what I'll do now is I'll definitely look to exclude shoes because I'm not actually targeting shoes. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go over to my Google Sheet here, which is going to be a manual sheet that I'm using to basically sort some of my keyword ideas once I actually figure out what it is I want to target. But not only am I looking at positive keywords I want to target, now is a very good time to be considering negative keywords based on what you're seeing in the keyword research. So a negative keyword that I would just drop in here right away are shoes, because I never want to serve if someone's looking for shoes because I don't sell shoes. So I can just pop that in there because I saw it while I was doing the research over here. So I'm going to exclude shoes. Gender, well, my bags are suitable for both women and men, so I'll keep that as it is. Magazine is next. So women's running must be the name of a magazine, but it actually is the name of the general term that we're looking to target. So I'm not going to exclude that. Same with men's running. And then joint, basically where on the body will this bag or belt be worn? I'm not going to exclude anything by that. Then others, phone, running free, mini carrier day, flashlight. I'm not going to exclude any of these for now. So I'm going to look up spy belt, and spy belt is a type of running belt. So they are a brand. So I'll actually look to exclude those. So if I go back up here, I can exclude spy belt, and also I'll double check. Flip belt is the same. So flip belt is another brand as well. So I can also go back and exclude flip belt. So they're both excluded. So I'm now down to 1,775. So I still have a lot of keywords, and that's fine. So next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to sort by average monthly searches. So running vest and running belt. Let's go back to my Google Sheets here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create basically ad groups here. So my ad groups are going to be, I'm going to say running vest, generic, then running belt, generic. Then I might say something about women's and then men's. They're the ones that are kind of instinctively coming to mind. I want to split them up into different themes. So my ad groups for now are looking like that. Running vest generic, running belt generic, women's and men's. So running belt and running vest, well, they can first go in here. So running vest and then running belt. So they're going to be the first keywords that I'm going to look to target. The reason being is they're really high search volume. They are core product terms that I want to be looking at. So I'll keep those in. Running vest women is the next one. So let's pop that in here. Weighted vest is next. So a weighted vest is completely different to the running vest that I'm selling. So I'll go back here and I will add weighted as a negative keyword because I don't want to serve for that. Ladies running vest, runner's vest, women's running vest for runners, running with a belt. Running with a belt is an unusual, it's more of a discovery phrase, I would say. I would rather find running belt directly as a phrase and target that. Weighted vest and running is there as well. So ladies running vest I could include here. We need to be careful that you don't have essentially a lot of the same terms with the same meaning. These are very similar terms. So generally speaking, depending on the match type, if you targeted running vest women, then ladies running vest would also be caught by this keyword. So there isn't, a great necessity to have both of these in or have multiple variations of the same term. You can do running vest for men. And next up, I'm seeing running hydration vest, running belt for phone, best running belt. So I'd say maybe best running belt. And I quite like hydration because let's say we have different pockets in our bag to carry water bottles or to carry a camel pack, then this would be a really good ad group to target. So running vests for hydration would be a term we'd have in here. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ad groups we're now targeting, but they're all quite distinct. I would say this is a generic running vest. This is a generic running belt. This is more kind of female focused terms. This will be men's focused terms. This will be more in relation to hydration. And the one more that caught my eye earlier is kind of for phone. So specific to holding a phone. And you can see running belt for phone here. So that can be dropped in over this part. Best running belt, best running vest, trail running vest, maybe running belt with water bottles. So if we sold something with a water bottle, we could include that here. We could always look to separate these further into maybe running vests for hydration or running vests that include a water bottle. Maybe they would be 2 separate ad groups, but for now I think it's reasonable to keep them together. Reflective running vests. So let's say we don't have a reflective element to our vest. Let's go ahead and exclude that. So using a negative keyword. Running water vest, hydration belt. So maybe we could include that back in our hydration ad group. We could also maybe look to include it here, but I think it's more suitable for hydration belt. So best running belt, running belt. So what I could actually do if I wanted to kind of focus more on finding terms for, let's say, running belt, what I can actually do is set up a filter here. And the filter is keyword contains running belt. And we can even keep it on text match is fine. So it's kind of close. So running belt is very high. Running with a belt, we said we might leave that. Best running belt with water bottle, running belt bag, running hydration belt, running light belt, lightweight running belt. Let's say that we feel like we have a lightweight belt, then we could include that there maybe and include how it's lightweight in our ad copy. Marathon running belt, I think that could be reasonable to include there as well. And you can see what we're looking to do here. We're looking to add enough terms. Generally, I try to add between kind of 4 and 10 keywords. I don't like to go too much above that because if you try to pick maybe 10 different keywords here and include them all in a single ad group, quite often then you have a picture that the terms are not that closely related. So a lightweight running belt versus a marathon running belt, for example, they're kind of 2 different terms. One of them we need to lean more heavily into the fact that it's suitable for longer distances around marathons, and the other is to do with it being kind of more lightweight. And our ad copy will have to reflect both of those value propositions. Now, if we've 10 different keywords here in this ad group and each keyword is the same degree of difference as, let's say, lightweight and marathon belts are, then it can become quite difficult to create some ad copy that actually speaks to all those individual keywords or those search queries, in which instance then it's often better to break them up into their own ad groups. So same thing here, if we wanted to, instead of look at running belt, if we wanted to focus on, say, women's, or we want to focus on ladies or women, just to see if any term, we can even go semantic match. So that's to do with kind of the meaning. Running vest, women, ladies, running vest, women's vest, running, best running vest for women. And then we're down into some things like athletic running vest, black running vest. So what we might do, there's white running vest as well. Let's say all our vests are black. We could always go and maybe just add white as a negative keyword there again. The idea here is that basically you're going through this list. You're making sure that your keywords that you're choosing have a relatively high degree of monthly searches. So if you keep scrolling down here and you see 10 to 100, what it's going to be is that these search queries or these keywords have very low search volume. And if these are the only keywords that you're targeting, you're going to find it very difficult to actually scale a campaign. Now, I'm not saying that these keywords down here don't have their place, but quite often you're better off looking for more general keyword terms. And by virtue of targeting those more general keyword terms, you will also pick up a lot of these more longer tail keywords, depending, of course, on the match type you're using. Okay, so let's say I want to save some of my keywords here. So I'm going to focus on the running belt. Let's say I want to look at forecasts for my running belt ad group. This is just one ad group. I would generally look to do the same level of research for these different ad groups, for men's, for example, or for the phone specific ad group, or the running vest, the generic one. But what I'll do for now is just take these terms, these running belt terms, and I'll go back up to saved keywords and I'll drop them in here, and I will go ahead and name my ad group as running belt. Save that. Now let's go and let's rename this plan to running belt, and let's go to forecast. So inside in forecast, what I can do is I can get some bit of an estimation of future performance of these keywords. Now, I would take this with a pinch of salt, but nonetheless, it is useful to have a look at. We go over here, we can add some conversion metrics. Let's say our conversion rate is 4%, and let's say our value per conversion is $60. So we'll give Google a little more information. Google thinks our average CPA is going to be $15, and our average conversion value is going to be $3,700. We're going to get a ROAS of 4, and we are spending $930, CTR of 8.1%, and an average CPC of 60 cents. But you can see if we wanted to be more aggressive and say we wanted to spend $3,000 per month, that would be almost $100 in daily budget, then we would get a conversion value of 4.9k, and our ROAS goes down to 1.6. Now we can mess around here with different bid types. So we can say manual CPC, and we can set the bid type ourselves to, let's say we don't want to pay any more than $1.50 for a click. Well, now Google's saying that we're going to spend $1,200 and get 4,000 back at a ROAS of 3.4. We can also get more information on things like percentage of computers versus mobile. You can see mobile is much greater in terms of absolute volume across cost and conversion metrics. So something like that would be useful. You need to make sure then that you're optimized for mobile. You can also look at things like top regions, top states. We're over here in the US, so top states would probably be our best bet. If we wanted to look at California, Texas, New York, Florida, these are obviously the big states. They tend to come up most often, but it is just useful information to have. And you can see your forecasts over the next year when you can expect peak season. So here we have Black Friday kind of coming up for 2026. So you can see that peak, but you can get an indication to say, okay, we might expect to see a lull in January and February, which is interesting. I wonder how accurate that is. Do a lot of people take up running in January and then obviously buy the gear? But that's what Google is telling us from historical data. It's what it's forecasting for the year to come. And obviously then it peaks in November and the holiday season as well. As I said, I wouldn't bank on this as absolute fact. It is just a forecast, but it is a good idea to get an indication of what you can expect. That would be from one particular ad group. Just as I said, these running belt terms, we could have a look at different terms across women's vests. We could have a look at men's specific, phone specific, hydration specific as well. But the key thing here is that what we're looking for in our keyword planner is keyword ideas, so positive keywords, but we're also looking to exclude some keywords if they're not relevant to what we're doing, because we know before we set up a campaign, the more negative keywords we can add, the less wasted clicks there'll be. So the less budget we'll waste on people who basically are searching for things that we don't sell, and ultimately those people won't convert. And there you have it, the complete Google Ads keyword research process for 2026. You now know how to identify high intent keywords, use the keyword planner tool effectively, and organize your keywords into themed ad groups for better campaign performance. Now that you know how to find the right keywords, we're going to walk you through the exact step-by-step process to setting up a search campaign to target these keywords. And by the way, if you want a complete checklist, of all the campaign settings and optimizations we'll be going through in this very course, then I've put it together in a free download for you. The link is in the description below. All right, let's get into the setup. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a Google search campaign step by step, the exact structure and settings that I recommend after managing millions in ad spend. I'm going to show you some bonus settings that we use at our agency for the thousands of search campaigns we've created. These are settings and optimizations that you can't access during the initial campaign setup, but are critical to the performance of your new campaigns. So let's dive in. So inside in our new campaign, we are going to click on the blue plus button to create a new campaign. The first question will be asked is, what's your campaign objective? And here we can choose objectives from sales, leads, website traffic, app promotions, awareness and consideration, local shop visits and promotions, or we can create a campaign without guidance. This actually doesn't matter which one we choose. It doesn't actually directly affect our campaigns. It does, however, determine which campaigns may be offered to us later on in the setup. So for this, because I'm going to walk you through exactly what's required, you are going to click on create a campaign without guidance. I'll be your guidance today. The next thing we'll be asked to do is to select a campaign type. So we have options like performance max, display, demand gen, shopping video, app. But obviously for this video, we are going to create a search campaign. The next thing that we are going to do is we are going to determine what our conversion goals are for this particular campaign. Now, this is a testing account, so that's why you'll see that these are not set up correctly or firing. But if you are an e-commerce business, for example, you will want to be tracking purchases, in which instance you will select page views here and remove that page views goal. If you're a lead generation business, you might be optimizing for things like phone calls or emails or form submissions. So I'm going to go ahead and click on continue, and then Google will ask me to select the results that you want to get from this campaign. Either I want to get phone calls or website visits. Now, for the purposes of this video, I will assume that I am an e-commerce store. So I sell physical product online. So the way I do that is via website visits. Now, for this example, I am going to imagine that I sell running vests, hydration vests for people who are running, maybe long distance, marathon runners, trail runners, things like that. So I'll just say my website is called www.runningvests.com. I will then be asked to give my new campaign a name. This is really important. It's much more important than you might think, but the naming convention of your campaigns matters a lot. Now, it may not matter so much if you've one campaign and one ad group, but for the vast majority of people, that is not the position you're going to be in, or fingers crossed, when you grow your account, it's not the position you're going to be in long term. You're going to have multiple different campaigns targeting multiple different regions or products or people or audiences, and you might have multiple different campaign types. You might be running search and shopping, performance max or video. You might be running in different states, perhaps in the US or all of the US, or you might be shipping internationally. So the campaign name we choose is really important to help us understand exactly what is going on in this campaign, particularly when we do have multiple campaigns in our account. So I am going to set up a campaign for this brand. Let's call it Vesty. The type of terms or keywords that I'm going to select for this campaign are more product generic terms like hydration vest or running vest. So we call this a non-branded campaign because I'm not targeting terms related to my brand name, which is Vesty. So let's say non-brand search. Let's say we are targeting the US. Okay, so that's enough. And then we are going to click continue. So now we are taken through to choosing a bid strategy for our campaign. I have a really detailed video about choosing the best bid strategy for your business. It's very much dependent on the account maturity, how many conversions you're getting per month, the type of campaign that you're looking to run. There's a lot of different factors that must be taken into consideration, but I would recommend going over to that video and taking a deep dive into bidding strategies. It's really important to understand. But again, for this video, I just want to give you a rough idea of my thought process when it comes to selecting bid strategies in this instance. So if this is a new account, we're setting up our very first campaign. Well, we don't have conversion data in the account, and conversion data is really important for smart bidding. Smart bidding is where we optimize for maximize conversions or maximize conversion value or target CPA or target ROAS. So because of that, I would select a more manual bid strategy to begin with. And the two that I recommend most often are manual CPC and maximize clicks. I personally prefer manual CPC, and in my video on bid strategies, I explain in more depth why, but maximize clicks is also a perfectly reasonable place to start as well. So what I might do here, instead of optimizing for conversions, I may optimize for clicks. I will come back and show you a bonus setting at the end of this video, how I change from maximize clicks to manual CPC. But if we're running this on maximize clicks, we'll set maybe a maximum cost per click limit. So if we say that we want to give Google a $50 a day budget, and in that $50, it's going to try and get us as many clicks as possible. But if we say we don't want to pay any more than $1 or $2 for a click, then what we can do here is set a maximum CPC limit. And in this instance, we can say $2. For this video, I won't adjust my bidding to acquire new customers. Our hope here is that we are acquiring new customers anyway by targeting more generic product terms. Okay, so the next thing we are brought to is the campaign settings. And the first thing we're going to be asked is to select our additional networks. Now, we have Google Search Partners Network and Google Display Network. These are both recommended by Google, but my recommendation is most certainly to remove Google Display Network. The way in which display works versus search is completely different, and performance here is really poor in comparison to search. That's at least our experience, so I would always recommend turning this off. Google Search Partners, I'm less passionate about turning it off. Generally, performance is suboptimal relative to Google's own search network. So I do generally also have this toggled off. When your campaigns mature, you can toggle it back on and test it. But when you are starting out with a new campaign, my recommendation would be to turn it off. Next up are locations. So we are going to select the location that we want to target. So you might want to target a country. It might be all of the US, for example, or you might want to target a particular city. So we are going to enter our location here. So I can type in United States and decide to include that. And let's say for whatever reason we didn't ship to a particular state, let's say Florida, we could actually go ahead and exclude that. So we would be including the United States but excluding Florida. The alternative you can do is you can pick a more advanced search and you can actually have a radius selected. So I might say I want to target Houston in Texas, and let's put a 20-mile radius around that, and I'm only going to target people within that radius. But for the purposes of the video, I'll stick with the US. And the next thing that we're going to want to do is click on this drop down menu here for location options. This is a really sneaky tactic by Google to get even more people to look at your ad. So we can either choose presence or interest, or just presence. Now, presence or interest are people who are regularly in, or who've shown interest in your included locations. Again, you can see it's recommended by Google because it gives Google a greater pool of people to advertise towards. Now, I would argue, as with a lot of people, that you are looking to target individual users within a certain geographic location. So even in the US, for example, if we were also targeting people who have shown an interest in the US, for example, that could include hundreds of thousands of people outside of the US. And let's say we're an e-commerce brand and we don't ship outside of the US, well, then we're wasting money advertising to people who we can sell our products to. So because of that, we are going to select presence only, people in or regularly in our included location, which is the US. For language, we'll select English. I'm writing my ads in English. For EU political campaigns, we can select no. I don't plan to use this account to run EU political campaigns, a very specific ask from Google. The next thing then are audience segments. So the important thing with audience segments is that we are setting them to observation as opposed to targeting. If we set them to targeting, then we will only be able to show our ads to people who fall into that audience segment. Now, I don't find that this really moves the needle in terms of search performance too much, but if you do have some audience segments in there and you're running a manual bid strategy, it's a new campaign, for example, and you see an audience segment do particularly well, maybe it's converting at a higher rate than everything else, you can manually adjust the bids to that audience. So you might ask Google to increase bids by 20% to serve more predominantly to that audience because they're converting well. That's one use case. The second thing you can do is draw some insights from the data as to where people sit in terms of audience segments, those people that convert on your campaign. Are they in certain in-market segments, affinity segments, demographics, etc.? So that's the second benefit of having it. So, for this instance, I could just search for running and see what comes up. So affinity audience for running enthusiasts, maybe cycling enthusiasts is there as well. Sports and fitness affinity audience. In market for running clothes, that could be useful. In market for active wear. I can also browse some segments of who they are. Are these people parents? So maybe they're parents of toddlers. I can just have all these on observation. Are they single, in a relationship, married, education, things like that. So who they are, what their interests are. So I've already gone through some of those, some affinity segments towards running, what they're in the market for. So maybe is there anything here to do with sports and fitness? There is. So there's a drop down menu here. So maybe they're looking for fitness products, fitness classes, gym and athletic clubs. Maybe I'll pop that in. Maybe sporting goods. Let's see what we have here. Nothing jumping out at me here. But look, I have 15 audiences here and they are all on observation. So I can take a look and I can see what performance is like between each segment. But the important thing is that we're not targeting these audiences. We're not refining our ads only to people that fall into these cohorts. More settings then, I would just leave ad rotation as it is. Do not set an end date. I don't see the point in that. You can come back if your campaign is not performing or you want to stop it for any reason. You can just pause your campaign, because if you set an end date now, you'll probably forget about it. You'll come back and wonder why your campaign isn't running, and it's because you set an end date. Keep your ad scheduled all day would be my recommendation. Now, if you are a lead gen business, if you are looking to get people to pick up the phone and call you, and your phone is only operated in business hours Monday to Friday, well, then you can come in here and select that option. You can say Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday and select the time. Just make sure that your ad account is on the same time zone as the phone that will be getting answered. Campaign URL options, so you can have URL parameters set up for tracking, and after that then these are kind of the core campaign settings that you need to be focusing on. Next, Google is going to ask you if you want to run AI Max for search campaigns. So essentially what this does is it gives Google the autonomy to go away and create ads based off of your final landing page. We're not going to do that today. We're going to make our ads ourselves. Keyword and asset generation is next. So this is kind of a similar premise, really. It is a case where we give Google our final URL and it will come up with keyword suggestions for us, as well as some particular assets like text and images. So once again, I'm going to skip that, and we're met with our first ad group. So make sure to call your ad group by name, something that makes sense. So when you come back and look at it again, you'll know what it is we're targeting. So this is going to be, what are we going to call it? Generic running vests. So these are the kind of terms I'm going to be targeting. Our keywords are next. Now, I have guidance on different keyword match types, and I'm going to briefly touch on it today, but I do have other videos on the channel about keyword match types. Keyword match types, we have three main match types. We have broad match, phrase match, and exact match. Broad match is where our ads may show on searches that relate to the keyword. This can be quite broad. So our keyword here, for example, is furniture store. If we have that on broad match, then we can serve ads for home decor or cream colored leather sectional. So you can see how different those terms are. And that is what broad match can do. It can go out and cast a really wide net across a lot of terms that are within the vicinity. They relate to your keyword, but they may not have the exact same meaning as your keyword. Next up is phrase match. Phrase match is more moderate matching, so it's slightly tighter than broad match. So ads may show in searches that include the meaning of your keyword. So once again, our keyword is furniture store here. Cheap furniture stores, living room furniture deals. What store is the best place to find a bedroom dresser? So ads are showing on searches that include the meaning of our keyword, so it's more closely related to our core keyword, furniture store. An exact match is where ads may show on searches that are the same meaning as our keyword. So it doesn't have to actually match our keyword exactly. So it is a bit of a misnomer, but it has to match the exact meaning at least. So ads may show on searches that are the same meaning as your keyword. So for furniture store, this means we could serve for furniture store or home furnishing shop, which just means the same as a furniture store. So which keyword match type should you opt for? Well, once again, there's many more videos on my channel about this, but for the most part, if you are a new campaign and you're running a manual CPC or a maximize clicks approach, I don't recommend opting for broad match. Now, if you're running smart bidding, you're running maximize conversion value or target ROAS bidding, for example, broad match can work really, really well. And it's the match type that we use to scale most aggressively because it gives you that room to go out and find terms that are related to your product beyond those obvious terms that you would pick up maybe in your keyword research. So on the contrary then, if it is a new campaign in a new ad account and you're running manual CPC or another manual bidding strategy, then my approach would be to aim much more for exact match terms. So if you do keyword research and you find really important product terms, start with exact match, and you can maybe add some phrase match to just gently open it. But my recommendation is don't mix broad match with manual bidding. So I have some generic keywords here that I want to target. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these up in exact match. So my keywords here are running vest, best running vest, and running hydration vest. So you can see that they're quite closely linked, and that's important because it means then when I go to write ad copy, it'll be easier to write ad copy around this single theme of running vests. Now, within my campaign, I may opt to set up other ad groups. One could be more focused on female running vests, another on male running vests, another on running vest with water bottles or running vests that can carry phones that are leaning more into individual USPs, so that my ad copy for those particular terms can be more directed to those USPs. But for now, I'm focusing on this ad group, which is generic running vest terms. And I am going to insert my final URL here. So this is where people are going to go. So maybe I will have a hero product page, could be where I'm sending these people via the final URL. Next up is display path. So let's call this running vest. If we zoom in here, we can see our display path, and that's just another opportunity to include our keywords or our important terms here. So for people who are searching for running vests, it catches the eye and it tells them, okay, they're in the right place. Now coming back here, I must remember that, let's say my brand name is Vesty. So I'll just change our website to say vesty.com. Then it's going to be /running vest for our display path. Then our headlines. So you will be asked to give at least 5 headlines. You can give up to 15. Somewhere in the middle, I generally think, is the sweet spot. It depends. If you max out 15 headlines and 4 descriptions and you've very little budget, well, then you're not going to really be able to test through those variations and actually understand what's working best. So sometimes you're actually better off having less headlines. So I have some headlines and some descriptions, my ad copy ready to go here. So I can just drop it in. So for example, I will have hydration, running vests, running bags and belts. So some of these that are including my keywords. I have a full deep dive on Google Ads ad copy, how you can write great ad copy for your ads that actually improve your click-through rate and get you cheaper cost per clicks. So I'll link that here and you can go away and watch that and get more information about writing really good ad copy. But for now, I want to continue through this video and actually show you the key settings that you need to get right when it comes to setting up really good search campaigns. So we can also look to add some images, include our business name, our business logo, and then our site links. So with our site links, these are going to be really important. These are another opportunity for us to basically take up more real estate with our search ad. So add more information. So we can send people to one product. We can send people to maybe a collection page, to an offers page, to an about us section. And we do this via these buttons and these are called site links. So that's them on mobile. And this would be an example of them then down here on desktop. The next thing is call outs. So once again, these will drop in maybe somewhere in your ad text. It's a really good opportunity to highlight some more key USPs about either your brand or the products that you're selling, maybe drop in some social proof. There's some other asset types that you can add, promotions if you have an active promotion or if you have a first order promotion. And depending on the type of business that you're on, you might have a phone number that you want to include, you might have a lead form, and you might also have an app that people can download. So that's going to be specific to your business. So next up, I'm going to be asked to set a daily budget. Now, daily budget really depends on your business goals, okay? So how much are you willing to invest? The more budget you have, the more clicks you're going to get and the more data that you'll get more quickly. And generally speaking, that means you'll improve performance more quickly because Google requires data to shift you over to automated bidding strategies, which are generally going to outperform manual strategies within Google Ads. So you need to make sure if you've done your keyword research, you should have a rough estimate of how much it's going to cost to get a click on the keywords that you've chosen. So based on the estimates that I've done with the keyword research here, it's going to cost me about $1 a click. Now, I really want to be getting, 10 to 20 clicks per day, meaning that's $10 to $20 per day. Now, that is an absolute minimum. I really want to be getting more than that. And if I can, setting a budget of $30, $40, $50 per day would probably improve conversion volume, the overall number of conversions I'm getting or purchases, meaning that I'd be able to transition to smart bidding more quickly. But just know that this is an average daily budget, and then sometimes Google can overspend on your daily budget, but averaged over a 30-day or a monthly period, you should settle out at this average daily amount. Now, so I have published my campaign, and at the top of the video, I spoke about some bonus settings that can really help improve performance from the get-go, particularly if you're a new account and you're maybe setting up your very first campaign. So the first thing that I'm going to recommend you do is go to when and where ads showed, and you will see devices here. Now, there's 3 devices: computers, mobile phones, and tablets. Computers and mobile phones tend to perform best. Now, it does depend on the type of business that you have. Some people will search for you more on desktop. If you're in certain verticals, a lot of people will search and find you on mobile. And that's just how it goes. But very few people actually search on tablets, and I find that generally performance is poor. So if you are tight on budget and you want to really focus that budget on the highest quality placements, well, then my recommendation would be to decrease tablets by 100%, effectively excluding them from your campaign. That's the first thing. The second thing now is to go to keywords, because what I want to do is I want to go to negative keywords. I want to exclude our ads from serving for certain terms. And what I would have done, and I have gone through another full video, I'll link it here, on negative keywords, is I will have set up negative keyword lists. I have 3 lists that I generally will always set up in every single account that I manage. The first will be my brand list. So in this instance, these will be terms related to Vesti, my brand name. I don't want to serve on terms related to Vesti, my brand name. So I'll include this negative keyword list to stop me serving on those terms. Now, the next thing I have is a competitor list. Now, I don't have an inherent problem with running ads to competitor terms, but if I run a competitor campaign, I want to do it in a dedicated campaign. I don't want competitor terms coming into a generic campaign, because I need to have tailored messaging that's going to really convince people to go to my website and look at my products as opposed to competitors. So for that very reason, I will exclude competitors from this campaign. And the next thing I have is a universal list. These are terms that I never want to serve my ads for, no matter if I'm targeting my own brand name, I'm targeting competitor names, I'm on the shopping placements, I'm on search. These are terms that are really low quality. It might be free, repair, careers, phrases like that that I never want to serve my ads for. So once again, I will include that as a negative keyword list, and I will add those to my campaigns. The third thing we're going to want to do is to go back out to campaigns, and we will be able to click on edit settings. And in edit settings, we'll be able to adjust our bidding strategy. So if you remember, I set our bidding strategy to maximize clicks, and I set a maximum CPC limit of $2. Well, I also said that I personally prefer manual CPC. I prefer the control that it gives me across each individual keyword. So I am going to change our bid strategy to manual CPC. So I'm going to click change bid strategy here. And if you click on this, you'll see that the options I have are conversions, conversion value, clicks, or impression share. So I don't see anything that's telling me I can change to manual CPC. Now, if you were paying attention during that setup, you probably noticed Google pushing you towards broad match keywords. But here's the thing, picking the wrong keyword match type is one of the quickest and most surefire ways of blowing through your budget on irrelevant clicks. So which match type should you actually use? And what's the real difference between them? That's exactly what we're covering next. Let's dive into keyword match types and how to choose the right ones for your campaigns. In this video, I'm going to go through everything keywords in Google Ads, understanding what keywords are, the different match types when it comes to keyword selection, and then understanding why you choose certain keywords to grow your business. So let's start by answering the question, what are keywords? So keywords are the words or the phrases that you tell Google you want to show your ads for. And this is very different to search terms. And I'm going to explain the difference between keywords and search terms now. So keywords versus search terms. Starting with keywords. These are what you target. They're the words or the phrases that you add to your campaign. They tell Google when you want to show an ad. And your keyword example might be running shoes. And then the difference with search terms is that search terms are what users actually type into Google's search bar. So these are real user search queries that allow Google then to trigger relevant ads. So based on your keyword match type, and that's all about determining how broad or how narrow you want to focus in on a particular keyword, and we'll dive into that in a few minutes. But depending on how wide your targeting is, you can serve on a single keyword for a whole host of different search queries or search terms. So if someone types in or uses the search term best trail running shoes for men, there's a possibility that you can serve an ad for that person on the keyword running shoes. That leads us on to the next topic, which is keyword match types. And keyword match types control how closely a user's search query must match your keyword in order for you to be able to serve them an ad. And there are 3 main match types. The first is exact, the second is phrase match, and the last or third is broad match. And in simple English, Google classifies broad match as comprehensive matching, meaning that it can serve for a very broad range of search queries. Exact match is the opposite. It's very, very tight. So it's very closely related. So your keyword and your search term have to be almost identical in order to serve an ad. And then phrase match is somewhere in the middle. They call it moderate matching. So it's important then to use the correct notation when you want to select each keyword match type. So for broad match, we actually add nothing to the keyword. So you can see here it's just the keyword. Whereas for phrase match, you see we've got these quotation marks here. So that indicates that this is a phrase match keyword. And then lastly, for exact match, we have these brackets on either side, and that indicates both to us and to Google that this is an exact match keyword. So let's dive into each one individually. So starting with broad match. So Google says that broad match may serve ads on queries that are related to your keyword. So it's very, very broad. So it uses the example here that if your broad match keyword is low carb diet plan, well then you're not just going to serve for low carb diet plans as a search query. You're going to potentially serve for carb free foods, low carb diet, Mediterranean diet books, how to cut carbs for beginners, carb free meals. So you can see this is a really, really broad variety of search queries with differing levels of intent and differing degrees of, let's say, closeness to your original keyword selection here, which is low carb diet plan. So basically this is going to cast the widest net and try to attract as many relatively close search terms as possible. So you can see that it may not deliver the most efficient and narrow focused targeting, but it gives you the broadest reach of all three keyword types. Second up is phrase match, and phrase match sits somewhere in the middle between broad and exact match. So Google says ads may show on searches that include the meaning of your keyword. The meaning of your keyword can be implied, and user searches can be a more specific form of the meaning. So they say it reaches more queries than exact match, but less queries than broad match. So for example, tennis shoes will serve for shoes for tennis, buy tennis shoes on sale, red tennis shoes, or comfortable tennis sneakers. So these are all in the realm of tennis shoes. Whereas shop for sneakers, Google deems under phrase match that this is not closely enough related to tennis shoes, and tennis store, again, slightly too distant from your original keyword, and again won't show because it doesn't mean the same thing. And then lastly is exact match, and this is going to be the tightest match type of the three. In this instance, ads may show on searches that either have the same meaning or same intent, and this match type is going to give you the most control over who actually sees your ad. And again, square brackets is the syntax you're going to need to use in order to create exact match keywords. So using Google's example, shoes for men will serve for shoes men, men's shoes, men's shoe, or shoes for a man. So these all have near identical meanings or intent. Whereas these queries here are too broad to serve an ad under exact match shoes for men keyword. So having gone through the three keyword match types, you probably have the question of which keyword match types should I choose? Well, it all depends on your goals to some extent. It also depends on how mature your campaigns and your general account is. So if it's very early for you in your account history, you don't have much conversion data, or you're really focused on efficiency within your account, then my approach would be to focus on exact match keywords. These are keywords you know to convert really well from either Amazon, or you've tested campaigns previously, and you're looking to just nail in your targeting from the very start to not, I suppose, waste any ad spend. If you're more growth focused, or if you have a lot of conversion data in the ad account and you're looking to scale, well then you should be much more inclined to leverage broad match. Broad match works really, really well with any automated bid strategies, particularly if you're an e-com business and you're working on max conversion value or target ROAS bidding. Combining that with broad match is usually really, really effective. And then I find that phrase match is one that sits slightly in the middle, and it's something that we're using less and less as a team. We're just finding that phrase match is getting almost broader in its nature. And in truth, all of these three match types are getting broader. And that's all part of, Google's shift towards eventually removing keyword targeting from our disposal and doing it entirely off their own volition. But for now, we don't really use phrase match. We don't have as much utility for it as we once had. It used to be a big part of our approach. When someone says, which should I choose? If you're sitting slightly in the middle and you're not sure if you want to be super efficient or super growth focused, I would say focus on 80% exact match. So focusing on keywords that you know convert really, really well, and then add some core keywords in broad match. And these keywords will allow you to go slightly beyond the scope of what you're targeting to help you find new search terms that convert, that can ultimately be sent back into the account as exact match keywords, and giving you new avenues to scale your search campaigns through. So now you've got your keywords and you know which match types to use. But here's where a lot of people drop the ball. They write boring, standard, generic ad copy that doesn't stand out. Your ad copy is what makes people click on your ad as opposed to your competitors. And if you want to learn how to write ad copy that actually converts, then stick around for this next video. Most people write Google ads that gets clicks, but not customers. You know the type. Catchy headlines, lots of buzzwords, but when you check your numbers, conversions are flat. The truth is, writing Google ads that actually convert isn't about being clever. It's about understanding what your audience are searching for and matching that intent perfectly. In this video, I'll show you how to write Google Ads copy that actually converts and the exact process that I use to create ads that pull in high quality leads and high quality sales while keeping CPCs low. I've helped over 100 brands grow using high performing ad copy that speaks directly to their ideal customer. These methods have consistently brought in 2x or even 3x better conversion rates than the standard template ads. Now, there are 4 core principles we follow to create fantastic converting copy that actually drives results. These aren't just theories, they're battle-tested strategies that work across industries and budgets. So let's dive into each one now. The first principle is what we call the congruency chain, and it's absolutely critical to get this right. So think of it like a chain. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you break one link in a chain, everything else will break, and the same holds true here. Your entire campaign will fall apart. And here's how it works. You have 3 connected elements that must be perfectly aligned. So you have the search query, which is what they type, your ad copy, what they see, and your landing page, where they go. So let me give you a real example. When someone searches for running shoes for knee pain, your ad headline better mention knee pain relief. Your ad description should talk about joint support, and when they click through, your landing page should focus on their exact problem, not just general running shoes. You see, if there's any disconnect between these 3 elements, you lose them. They'll hit the back button faster than you can say bounce rate. But here's what's really interesting, and this is where most advertisers miss out on serious money. Google actually rewards this relevancy through their quality score system. When your congruency chain is tight, Google sees your ad as super relevant to the user search query. And this relevancy directly impacts your quality score, which is Google's way of measuring how useful your ad is to the searcher. And here's the beautiful part. A higher quality score means lower cost per clicks. We're talking about paying 30%, 40%, sometimes even 50% less for the same clicks as your competitors. I've seen campaigns where fixing the congruency chain has dropped CPCs from $3 all the way down to $1.50, while actually improving conversion rates. Think if you were able to get twice as many clicks for your budget and increase your conversion rate. The unit economics would make so much sense. And that's the power of perfect alignment. Google wants to show ads that users find helpful. So when you nail the congruency chain, you're not fighting against Google's algorithm. You're actually working with it. Principle number 2, I call the emotion ladder. Now, most people understand the difference between benefits and features, but there's actually a third level that most marketers completely miss. And this is where the real conversion magic happens. So let me break down this emotion ladder concept. So at the bottom, you have features, which is what the product has. So for example, you'd say air cushioning technology in the sole. That's just a specification. Now, one rung up, you have benefits, what the product does for the customer. So that becomes reduced impact on your joints during long runs. So that's better, but we're not done yet. Because at the top of the ladder, we have emotional benefits, why it matters to them personally. So this is run pain-free so you can enjoy every mile and get back to doing what you love. So do you see the progression? We went from talking about technology to talking about joints, to talking about enjoying life and doing what they love. You see, the emotional benefit taps into core human desires. Things like achievement, belonging, freedom, status, pleasure, purpose, comfort, curiosity. These are deep psychological drivers that actually make people buy, because most of your competitors are stuck at the feature or maybe the benefit level. But when you climb to that emotional benefit level, you're speaking a completely different language, one that resonates on a much deeper level. This is why brands like Apple don't sell computers. They sell creativity and status. Nike doesn't sell shoes. They sell achievement and identity. So now that we've piqued people's interest with our ads, we have to tell them what the next step is. And this is where I see the biggest mistakes costing advertisers thousands in lost conversions. People either have no call to action, multiple confusing CTAs that create decision paralysis, or incredibly weak ones that inspire no action whatsoever. So let me show you the 3 most common CTA mistakes. So first is no CTA at all. Your ad just ends. People read it and think, that's nice, and then move on with their lives. Second is multiple CTAs. Shop now, learn more, check out our bestsellers. You're given too many options, so you choose none of them. And then the third is weak CTAs. So things like learn more, click here, or shop all. They're creating no urgency and giving no compelling reason to act. So instead, here's my 3-step formula for CTAs that actually drive action. So step 1 is using a strong imperative verb. So get, start, claim, unlock, discover. So these create immediate action and tell people exactly what to do. Step 2, create urgency. Add words like now, today, instantly, limited time. Don't let them think, I'll do this later, because later never comes. And then step 3, include your strongest offer. So it might be a free trial, a money back guarantee, 30% discount, instant access. Give them a compelling reason to act right now. So instead of something weak like shop all, you'd say start your 100-day trial today. Or instead of learn more, claim your free strategy session right now. The difference in click-through rates and conversions is dramatic. We're talking about a 40 to 60% improvement from just fixing your CTA. And the 4th and final principle I call breaking through the noise. Here's the challenge with search campaigns that makes them different from social media campaigns or display ads. You can't change fonts or colors or fancy formatting in order to stand out. You can't make your text bigger or add colorful graphics. So you have to get creative with your actual words to break through that noise and grab attention in a sea of similar looking ads. So let me show you my 3 proven strategies to help you do so. So the first strategy is including numbers and be specific. So our brains are naturally drawn to numbers because they feel concrete, they feel trustworthy. So look at how Viore uses different sizing options in their ads. So available in 5-inch, 7.5-inch and 9-inch inseams. So it immediately catches attention, provides valuable context that helps people self-qualify. Other things, instead of saying fast delivery, say delivered in 24 or 48 hours. And instead of great results, say 87% of customers see real difference in the first 30 days. The second strategy is all about using personal words like you and your. So this makes your ad feel like a one-on-one conversation rather than just a broadcast message. So AG1 does this brilliantly with the formulated for your body. So it's speaking directly to the individual user, makes it feel a bit more personalized to their specific needs, and is definitely going to increase their click-through rate on this ad. Again, another example might be instead of saying something like our software helps businesses, you might say transform your business operations. So you'll hear this a lot, particularly in TV adverts. You're trying to speak to the individual because when someone hears a term like you or your, they're instantly drawn in because they feel like it's speaking directly to them. So this is really going to help with engagement and ultimately will help you boost your click-through rate in your ads. And the next one is all about showing off your most enticing offers prominently. So don't bury your best offers in the fine print. Instead, you should be leading with them. So Casper, who I've been following for years, has been doing this strategy for years. They nail it with their 100-night trial prominently displayed, and then they couple it with a second offer, which is limited time 25% off bundles. So you can see they've got 2 really prominent offers. They're adding urgency there with the limited time. And I know for a fact this works really well for them because they've been running this ad campaign for years. So they're not hiding their competitive advantages here. They're making them the hero of their ad. Your guarantee, your unique offer, your special pricing, these should be front and center of your search campaigns. Now, let me give you some advanced pro tips that are going to take your ads from good to exceptional. So firstly, add trust signals wherever possible. So as seen in Forbes, loved by 10,000 customers, trusted by 50,000 women, social proof works incredibly well in ad copy because it reduces risk in the buyer's mind. Secondly, test your ad copy frequently because the best advertisers, they're constantly testing new angles, new headlines, new messages. So don't just set it and forget it like so many do with Google Ads. Instead, you have to realize that your market is always evolving and your copy should be too. Third, and this is really important, don't copy your competitors. So I see this all the time. People just rephrase what everyone else is saying. Instead, look for gaps in their positioning. What aren't they talking about that you could own? What parts of your offer is better than theirs? What angles are they missing? These are the things you need to identify because they're the things that are going to have a massive impact in the long term. Fourth thing, and again, I see this overlooked so often, is speak in your customer's language. So not in industry jargon, in the language that they use. So one thing we do all the time is we look at customer reviews. What are they saying that's positive? What is negative? What are the recurring themes, the recurring idiosyncrasies of the language they use? So if your customers say cheap, don't say cost effective. If they say easy, don't say streamlined. You should be using their words and not yours. Fifth, and this comes back to the emotion ladder, sell to emotional outcomes. Don't just sell features. So people buy feelings and results. They don't buy specifications. And sure, they're useful to include, but it depends on the stage of the funnel. And you can't just include these at the expense of all the emotional outcome headlines that you should be using. They're nice add-ons to link together. So we have this specification that leads to this benefit, that leads to this emotional outcome for you. Tie it all together using that emotion ladder I discussed earlier in the video. And finally, most importantly, don't forget the congruency cycle. Everything must connect from search query, ad copy to landing page. If that chain breaks anywhere at all, you're going to lose the sale. Now you've set up your campaign, you've chosen your keywords, you've written your ad copy. You're almost there, but you're actually at the very point where one bad decision can undo all of this good work, because now you need to decide on a bid strategy. Choose the wrong one and you can end up blowing all of your budget on poor, irrelevant clicks. In this next video, I'm going to break down which bid strategies you should be using depending on your business, your goals, and how mature your Google Ads account really is. So stick around and let's dive into it now. Today I'm showing you the practical side of bidding strategies, what actually works in 2026. Because here's the reality, Google gives you all of these bidding strategies, but they don't really tell you which one makes most sense for your business or when you should be using each one. So what happens is you end up wasting thousands in ad spend, setting up campaigns that never make it off the ground. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which bidding strategies to start with, when to switch to something more advanced, and how to avoid the mistakes that kill most campaigns before they get started. So let's jump into it. So at its simplest level, a bidding strategy is a set of rules you give Google Ads to determine how much you're willing to pay for a specific user interaction, and most commonly that user interaction is a click. And today I'm going to go through the most common bidding strategies. I'm not going to touch too much on video strategies, but I'm going to talk about search, shopping, performance max, the most common campaign types you're going to be using inside in Google Ads. So every time a user searches for a product on Google, something called an auction takes place. And that happens in just milliseconds, so fractions of seconds. And your bidding strategy is what tells Google's algorithm how to behave in that auction. So it's really important. So I want to start by touching on the core shift that we're in the middle of, and we're kind of coming out the other side of it now, because previously, let's say 5 years ago, there would have been a more manual approach to bidding strategies. So we would have set explicit caps on how much we were willing to pay for a click. So you say essentially, I want to pay a maximum of $1 for this keyword. And the result then is if the bid needed to serve in that auction or to be competitive in that auction is $1.05, well, then we lose that auction. If the bid needed is 95 cents, well, then we can participate potentially in that auction. But it was a very binary yes or no. We either had a manual bid that achieved what we needed to enter that auction, or it didn't, and we didn't enter the auction. Now, the smart bidding approach is much more outcome focused. So instead of saying to Google how much we're willing to pay for a click, we're instead saying we want a desired action. So we might say, Google, get me a conversion for $30. And if you're an e-commerce brand, a conversion is a purchase. And you might say, I don't care what the individual click costs. And if you're reviewing your Google Ads campaigns, you're much more interested in what's my cost per acquisition or what's my ROAS than necessarily what is my cost per click. So the result is then the algorithm bids whatever is necessary within the aim of achieving your desired goal. Okay, so we've gone from this very manual approach to this smart bidding approach, and that is fundamental to understanding bid strategies in 2026 and beyond. I like to bucket bid strategies into three main cohorts. The first is manual bidding. So what I kind of mentioned earlier, here is the old way. There's still times that we do it, and it's still really important to a lot of our strategies. So manual bidding, you control the specific bid amounts. Then we have smart bidding, which is kind of like automated bidding, but it's slightly different. But generally, it's new bid strategy types from Google that are focused on conversions or ROAS in the case of e-commerce brands. And then we have this kind of hybrid that I call traffic bidding. So they're still automated strategies. They're not technically smart bidding, but they focus on volume. So they focus on volume such as number of clicks in maximize clicks, or volume in terms of impression share via target impression share. So we're moving to smart bidding, but it's important to understand why smart bidding generally wins. Why are we relinquishing the control? It feels like we're relinquishing control from a lot of different places, but why we're doing this voluntarily is because smart bidding has access to data that we simply don't have. So when it comes to manual bidding, we would have previously relied on things we could see. Historical data. What did this keyword convert at across the last 3 months or 6 months? Time of day. So we would look through all the different hour cohorts. Okay, people converted twice as well from 8 to 10 p.m. in the evening. Device location, where people were, or types of devices, on mobile, on desktop, on tablet. Users demographics, so audience demographic, age, gender. We would have even gone into things like household income and things like that. So the action then was essentially we would find things that either were strong outliers, positive or negative. So this is a good positive predictive indicator of conversion, let's say household income above 10%. And then maybe we would have manually increased our bids by 10 or 15% to actually go after that cohort a little more. And then on the contrary, if we found something that didn't convert particularly efficiently and we wanted to maybe cut that or bid less aggressively on that cohort, let's say we were kind of a female focused, a predominant focused brand, and we found that when we were targeting males, it was just not cost efficient, but we were still converting a small bit. We didn't want to exclude them. Well, then in that instance, we might downbid by 10 or 20%, depending on the relative difference between, say, males and females, etc. So it was a lot of manual adjustment, a lot of digging into the data, coming up with, I suppose, hypotheses ourselves as to what was working and what was not. Now, smart bidding utilizes signals that we cannot see. So of course it looks at all the things that we could see. So historical data, time of day, device, location, demographics, it can see all that. But it also, Google suggesting at least, that it can access real-time contextual signals that assess conversion probability per user. So not all of these have been confirmed by Google, but it's very much believed to be the case that Google has access to user history. So if someone watched a review of your product on YouTube, which is a Google-owned channel, then they would have access to that information. Cross-device activity. So you might be signed into your Google account on your phone. You might be signed in on your tablet, your iPad, and you might be signed in on your laptop as well. So if you're doing something on your phone, on your Google account, then you're on your laptop 6 hours later in the day. Well, then Google understands your behavior across multiple devices, which is really important. And then intent. This is really interesting. Google can know if you have, say, autofill of a credit card, because if you were the type of person that autofills your credit card on Google Chrome, well, then there's a higher likelihood that you're more keen to use it when you're using Chrome. So perhaps that would give Google an indication that you're a much higher likelihood of purchasing online than the average person. So the AI then can bid aggressively for a specific user that maybe exhibits these contextual signals because they deem the probability of conversion to be higher. So these are things that we as advertisers cannot see, that Google has access to themselves. So you can see why smart bidding, particularly when it's done right, is much more effective than manual bidding can be at this moment. Again, there's times where I much prefer manual bidding. I don't want to use this as like a blanket statement that smart bidding is inherently better, but for the most part, I do think that smart bidding is where Google wants us to go. It's where most of our campaigns have already gone, and I do find the results are far, far better. But common pitfalls, and these are what I'm going to go through in this video today: not matching your bid strategy to account maturity. I think that's probably one of the most common areas where people fall down. Suffocating the algorithm with bad targets. So smart bidding needs time to learn, and quite often people ask it to do too much, and that suffocates it. And then a lack of patience, what I call strategy swings. So you can either swing from one bid strategy type to another, sending everything into a learning phase, or you can swing from a really competitive target ROAS to a really aggressive to a really conservative. And again, that has a similar effect as well. So By the end of this video, you're going to be able to pick the most effective bid strategy for your stage of growth, decide whether manual or automated bidding is right for you, and then recognize the signals that tell you it's time to adjust your bid strategy, because bid strategies are not set and forget. You should often be changing them dependent on the progression of your campaign. So when I think about bid strategies, I don't always have standard operating procedures, is because it's not always black and white. So what I like to do instead is adopt standard thinking procedures. And these are ways that I think as opposed to having ways that I act. And I think if you can adopt these kind of strategies in this framework when you're managing Google Ads or managing any media for that instance, I think it's often much better to have really strong standard thinking procedures than it is to have standard operating procedures. And the reason for that is that, again, a lot of things are not black and white, they fall in that gray area. So the first standard thinking procedure I have is that when it comes to picking the right bid strategy, I simply ask my pixel, is this target a friend or is it a stranger? And I know this seems kind of stupid. Does my conversion pixel know anything about what it is I'm trying to target? So be it a bunch of keywords or a bunch of products. So then I look back in the account and go, okay, have we targeted these keywords before, or have we targeted these products before? And if the answer is no, well, then I deem those products or those keywords to be a stranger. Well, if the answer is yes, the pixel and our target then are essentially friends. Now, quite often it will end up somewhere in the middle and we'll go through that again, but this is a standard thinking procedure that I think is always a good place to start when it comes to picking a bid strategy. So for new accounts, so for the context for new accounts have no conversion data. So our target, which is either going to be our keywords or our products, and our pixel are complete strangers. So when they're strangers, smart bidding has no data to work from. And smart bidding, we know, works much more efficiently when it does have data to work from. So because of that, we opt for a manual approach when it comes to new accounts. So we either set up our campaign on manual CPC, manual cost per click, where we choose the maximum bid we're willing to pay, or maximize clicks. Now, with manual CPC, you choose the bid at a keyword level. So for each individual keyword, you can choose the same bid, or you can bid up for some keywords and down for others. This is a slightly more conservative option because you can set your bids very, very low and then you can gradually increase as you get more confident, more comfortable. But sometimes it can be difficult to know where to set the bids. You can use Google's keyword planner to get estimates of top of page bid rates and bottom of page bid rates, etc. But still, it's not 100% accurate. And sometimes you feel like you start too low or you start too high, and it can be tricky, especially for new advertisers. But my recommendation is always to start low, because the worst thing that happens is that you're not competitive enough and you don't essentially enter those auctions and you don't pay for those clicks. So all you do then is increase your bids gently time after time. So that's manual CPC. And the alternative then is maximize clicks. And with maximize clicks, Google has a set budget and its job is to get as many clicks as it can within that budget. So it's maximizing clicks for your budget. You can set an upper limit or a cap on what you're willing to pay for any individual click. So that's one way that you can keep a bit of a lid on it. But unless you pick either low volume keywords, so keywords that aren't searched very often, or you set a really low cap, it will very likely spend your total budget each day. So for that reason, it's slightly more aggressive. But being slightly more aggressive, you can get more click data more quickly. Now, for me, my personal preference is manual CPC, because I fear that maximize clicks, the very nature of it is trying to get you as many clicks for your budget. Well, then it's going to look for, low cost clicks, and low cost clicks does not necessarily equate to high quality clicks. And that's what I found in the past. And as a result, I prefer manual CPC. I prefer being in amongst it, getting a feel for what keywords are needing what bids. And, especially at the start for a new campaign, I'm changing bids every day. I'm increasing them and getting more and more competitive. It's my personal preference, but either are totally valid options. So when it comes to manual bidding, then we have this data collection phase. So we've chosen manual bidding, either manual CPC or maximize clicks. Our goal is to collect enough data that our target, so our keyword or our products, becomes friendly with our pixel. So what we're doing is we're cleaning up our search traffic, because we will have some queries that, are not relevant to our business. This is a new campaign, a new account after all. So that's very likely to happen. So we're adding negative keywords, and then we're gradually becoming more competitive by raising our cost per clicks, our CPCs. If we see certain keywords performing well, then we can gently increase the bids there relative to maybe other keywords, because the goal, as I said, after maybe 4 or 6 weeks is to move to smart bidding. So smart bidding, and I'm going to talk about smart bidding for e-commerce. You have two kind of general types of smart bidding. You have one type, which is focused on conversions. For an e-commerce store, that's going to be purchases. And then you have a second type, which is focused on conversion value, which again is going to be for revenue. So within the bracket of conversions, you have either maximize conversions or you've target CPA, target cost per acquisition. Now, generally, we don't use these for e-commerce because the vast majority of our e-commerce partners will have a variable order amount or order value. So sometimes it'll be $50, sometimes $70, sometimes $90. So in that instance, if we can achieve higher value orders, it's more useful for us. So we want to train our pixel to go after higher value orders. So the way we do that is by focusing on revenue as opposed to focusing on purchase quantity or purchase amount. So we don't weight each purchase the same. So this would be a more suitable option for lead gen. Conversion value focused bidding is better for e-commerce businesses. Within that, we have maximize conversion value. So this is where we give Google a set daily budget and we tell Google to get us the highest amount of conversion value or revenue that it can using our budget. And then the alternative to that is target ROAS bidding, which is target return on ad spend, where we give Google a target ROAS, which might be, let's say, 300%. So for every $1 in ad spend, I want to get $3 back. And then Google goes out and tries to help us essentially achieve that goal. So I said that our data collection phase with manual bidding, the function of that phase is to collect enough data that our pixel and our target become friends. And that allows us then to essentially move to smart bidding. So what is that tipping point? Well, most people say 30 conversions within the last month, and I don't disagree at all. It is a case of, okay, if I have 29 and my good enough chances are yes. It's not, again, a binary yes or no that you need to hit 30. But for the most part, 30 and above will have a much greater chance of success when you do move to smart bidding. It is just a case where we have drawn a line in the sand and said, okay, really, you do want to be aiming for 30 plus conversions within the last month. I prefer to move to maximize conversion value from manual bidding. So moving to this guy as opposed to straight to target ROAS. My logic here is that target ROAS bidding is slightly more nuanced. It takes more objective work for the algorithm to actually be successful with this bidding strategy. It also, you really need more data. So where we say 30 conversions to move to smart bidding, we often say 50 plus conversions in the last 30 days to actually move to target ROAS more successfully. So because of that, I do feel like it requires more work for the algorithm to be successful with target ROAS bidding. So what I like to do is give the algorithm, room to breathe, and it has a greater opportunity to breathe using maximize conversion value. So I give it the freedom to learn better during that transition to smart bidding. On maximize conversion value, I ideally like to give it another 3 to 4 weeks before moving to target ROAS. And when setting target ROAS, I generally once again try to give the algorithm more flexibility initially. So as an example, if our last 30 days, our actual ROAS on maximize conversion value was 300%, I'd set our target for our new target for target ROAS to maybe 275 or 285%, so slightly below where we have been operating, because again, that just gives the algorithm more flexibility, more wiggle room when it comes to adopting this new bid strategy. So a couple of rules then: never change your target ROAS in large swings. That will have a disastrous effect and it will set you back into a learning period. You don't want to do that. And then also don't change it too frequently. So every 3 to 4 weeks really at a maximum is what I would recommend. So the next thing then is our second standard thinking procedure. What I say is stable growth of any campaign is a sequence of smart steps, not a series of erratic jumps. So what I say, the timeline of a great campaign looks something like this. This is not the only way to have a great campaign, so don't take it as that, but this is an example of what the transition through different phases might look like. So as I said, great things take time. The key to a successful campaign is working smartly towards the next step. If we jump too quickly from one to another, or from one over another, we end up going backwards to the previous step and start all over again. So manual bidding to collect data. We're going to then try to hit 30 conversions per month and transition to smart bidding. So something like maximize conversion value. Once we feel comfortable that maximize conversion value is working well and we've hit 50 conversions per month and our conversion volume is really ramped up, then we can introduce target bidding intelligently. So target ROAS most commonly, but don't introduce it at a really kind of suffocating level. So as I said, if you've been operating at 300%, don't add a target ROAS at 450%, because all of a sudden the algorithm is going to get a fright and it's going to bid much more conservatively, and then spend will reduce as such, and you're kind of setting things back towards the start. So you don't want to do that. So if you set a more conservative target ROAS, let's say 275%, with time, once you're seeing this consistently being met and conversion volume is still high, you can then start to tighten it to your goal target ROAS. So let's say our goal long term is to achieve 300%. Well, then gradually bring that up to 300%. Once you see the campaign working really nicely at 300% target ROAS, then you can start increasing your budget. Again, do this in increments. Don't suddenly double or triple or quadruple your budget and expect performance to remain really stable, because it won't. Very small, very measured, very sensible increases in target ROAS, or changes to bid strategies, or increases in budget. This is what's going to have the best impact. So increase budget and squeeze out all the growth you can at that desired efficiency. So if it's 300% target ROAS, and that is the standard thinking procedure number 2 that I always try to adopt when it comes to bid strategies. So stable growth is a sequence of smart steps, not a series of erratic jumps. As I said, this is a hypothetical situation for a new campaign. It's not a blanket guideline to follow across all campaigns. Ultimately, the series of steps you take are up to you, but they should be a series of steps and not a series of erratic jumps. So in this instance, phase 1, the data collection, this is our stranger phase. The algorithm has no history. We must manually tell it what we're willing to pay to generate initial traffic and conversions. And then our exit criteria here is, do we have enough conversions for the pixel to see our target as a friend? And as I said, that's 30 monthly conversions if we're looking to go to maximize conversion value. And then phase 2 is that switch to smart bidding, which, as I said, is often maximize conversion value. And we're not going to set a target ROAS right away, at least from most instances. Phase 3 is that intelligent targeting, so a constrained phase. So we're now beginning to introduce target bidding. I said intelligently. Now the volume is stable. We tell Google, get me more conversions, but only if we meet this required return on ad spend. Set the target on actual recent performance, not your dream goal, to avoid suffocating the campaign. So important. Phase 4 is optimization. It's the tightening phase, so we can start tightening that nut on target ROAS to get it to our long-term goal for target ROAS. So what we want to do here is improve profitability, but we don't want to kill volume. And that's another conversation in itself. Where do we pick target ROAS from? Well, it's all about finding the sweet spot between achieving more volume while maintaining profit. But if you can maintain a solid profit level while increasing volume, then absolute profit by volume will also increase. And then phase 5 is the squeeze phase. So we're increasing budget to squeeze all growth out of target ROAS in this campaign. So you have a profitable, stable machine. Now you feed it more budget to maximize the volume at that specific efficiency level. So we've spoken about new campaigns in new accounts, and I think that's pretty clear, and I hope it's pretty clear. But where most people run into issues is new campaigns in a mature account. So a mature account could be spending for 6 months or 12 months or 2 years or whatever the case may be, but it has a lot of conversion volume through the pixel. So what do you opt for then? Well, we still need to adopt the right strategy using our standard thinking procedure number 1, which is asking our pixel, is this target a friend or is it a stranger? So if the new campaign we're setting up is using a new keyword group or new products, we've never ran traffic to them in Google Ads before, Or we've run traffic, but there is not enough traffic to support, let's say, a friendship between the pixels. So it's nowhere near 30 conversions. Maybe we ran very little traffic to a set of keywords before or a product before. But even in that instance, we're just going to treat it as if it's a new account. Because as I said, our pixel and our targets are strangers. Start with manual CPC or max clicks if you prefer, and progress as above as if it's a new account. Sometimes you can progress a little quicker in this instance because your conversion pixel is warm, so it will be that bit more intelligent in general, even though it won't have too much insight into these new keyword groups or new products. But if it's an existing keyword group or existing products, and let's say you're restructuring a campaign, you're moving out some keywords into their own campaign, or you're moving, a top performing product from one campaign into its own campaign, then the pixel already knows about them. You could say that they're friends, particularly if there's a lot of conversion volume behind them. So they're not strangers. So you can look into smart bidding if there is enough data there. Max conversions then for a quicker ramp up, because you allow Google to get much more data more quickly, because max conversions gives Google the ability to spend all your budget essentially, whereas target ROAS is a slightly more constricting bid strategy, so it can take that bit longer. So it depends on your goals, but this is the flow chart that we use. So for a mature account, if it's new keywords or new products that you're using, treat it as a new account and opt for either manual CPC or max clicks. I've said manual CPC is my preference, but either is okay. And if it's existing keywords or products, is there enough conversion volume? So is there 30 conversions through this new set of keywords or this products? If the answer is no, well, then I would probably just treat it as a new account for highest chance of success. Now, you still could go down this route, but personally, I prefer to go this way. This kind of goes back to my point up here with the timeline of a great campaign. Is I much prefer the feeling of momentum when I have a campaign that's progressing nicely through these steps. Whereas if I have a manual bid strategy and I jump to target bidding because I think, okay, there's enough data here, and sometimes there is, and sometimes it can work, and I'm not saying that it can't work, but what often happens is that if you jump to, say, target ROAS for manual CPC, you can find that the algorithm suffocates things a little bit, particularly at the start, and it takes a long time to get going. And then you feel like, okay, I need to go back and I need to set this on maybe max conversion value. I never like the feeling of going backwards because I feel like I've wasted time. I don't feel like we've been efficient as we can be. I much prefer the feeling of progression through each of these individual phases. So that's kind of the same train of thought I take here. I prefer to just go, okay, rather than jumping to the case whereby I think there's enough conversion volume, but I'm not really sure, it's probably somewhere in the middle between a yes and a no. Well, then I don't really want to go yes and find that I move to automated bidding and it doesn't really work too well, and then I have to go backwards to manual bidding. I'd rather go manual bidding and progress kind of more quickly that way through those kind of series of small steps. If it's a clear yes, so if there's 50 or 100 conversions in the last month, then our question is, do we want to ramp up quickly? If the answer is yes, well, then we'll give max conversion value. Sorry, that should read max conversion value a go, so that Google can basically spend all our budget, learn as much as possible. And if we don't want to ramp quickly, if we want to focus more so on efficiency, then opt for target ROAS bidding instead. So that is new accounts and also new campaigns in mature accounts. Now I'm going to break down a couple of specific examples very, very quickly. The first are branded search campaigns. So branded search campaigns are defensive campaigns where you're trying to maximize impression share. So maximize the times that your ad shows and making sure that other competitor ads don't show. So it's not really one that you're focused on ROI directly. You're more focused on preventing competitors from serving ads. So in that instance, it's different to other campaign types. Again, I recommend either manual CPC or target impression share bidding. I don't like automated bid strategies for this because, again, we're not looking for conversions necessarily. We're not looking for ROAS. Okay, we want to make sure that we're maximizing ROAS and we're not overpaying for clicks. But for me, I've seen the best results with manual CPC or target impression share bidding. And even recently, I have kind of moved most of my accounts to manual CPC just because I feel like target impression share can shoot quite high depending on your goals. So if I say I want to serve 90 or 92% of the time, so using a target impression share of 92%, I found that the last, couple of percentage, so let's say from 80 to 92%, so getting me up from there to 92% can kind of come at a very high cost on target impression share bidding. And I just prefer the manual control. You could use a max CPC limit with target impression share. So you could say, I I want to achieve a top page rate of X percent, 95%, but I don't want to pay more than $2 per click. But I think manual CPC, you're kind of doing something very similar there anyway. I ultimately think that these conversations are pretty hair splitting, as I say, and more focus should be spent on picking the best strategy for higher funnel activities that are actually going to grow your account. But to me, I think any approach like manual CPC or target impression share is fine, and I don't think it warrants a massive dialogue at the moment. I think I've seen a lot of stuff online of some kind of research around which works better, and I think manual CPC has outperformed basically everything I've seen, so I'm happy enough to stick with that. Myself, my accounts that I'm seeing manual CPC work best anyway. When it comes to shopping campaigns, there's only 3 bid strategies available to you with manual shopping. So you don't actually have maximize conversion value available. So you only have manual CPC, you have max clicks, and you have target ROAS bidding. So again, start your data collection phase as normal with, again, for me, I prefer manual CPC. This is just my preference. You can use max clicks. And then I would wait for the 50 conversions in the 30 days to move to target ROAS bidding. That would be the only difference. So instead of jumping to maximize conversion value once you have 30, you don't have that opportunity when it comes to manual shopping. So I would try to wait for 50 monthly conversions before moving to target ROAS. Maybe you could go a little lower, but ideally with all these things, the more data you can get and the closer you can get to this figure or even surpass it, and then the higher likelihood of success when you do move to smart bidding of any sort. So that would be my recommendation there. So Performance Max, you have 4 available bid strategies, and they are actually these bid strategies that we went through up here. So you can either focus on conversions or conversion value. So maximize conversions, TCPA, maximize conversion value, or target ROAS. But as I said, I don't really like these for e-commerce. These are more lead gen. So these are your options here: maximize conversion value or target ROAS. So because of that, then I have a choice between 2 bidding strategies. PMax, this is something that's really important. It takes a lot of time to get going. It can 6 weeks, 8 weeks, even more sometimes. So because of that, it needs a lot of conversion data. So the quicker you can give it that conversion data, the quicker it can learn. So with that in mind, I prefer to go to maximize conversion volume. It is just, it's going to speed up that training more, and particularly if it is a kind of a new angle or new products or new keywords, I would go down that route. If it is a case whereby I'm taking an asset group out of Performance Max because I want to give it its own campaign, its own Performance Max campaign, well then yes, I could look at the last 30 days and look at performance in that asset group around the last 30 days and go, okay, let's actually aim for a target ROAS that's kind of similar to its own performance. So that's slightly different, but if it's a new Performance Max campaign, I generally like to go max conversion value for at least a month and see how it performs. And if I'm really happy that conversion volume is sky high and I feel like the campaign has learned really well, it's already stable, well then I would have a lower barrier, a lower threshold to move to target ROAS. But that's my preference. You just have to be aware that maximize conversion value will spend quite often, particularly with PMax, with all the networks and the channels available to it, will spend your daily budget. So you have to be comfortable with spending whatever that daily budget is. And if it's Performance Max campaign, it needs to be $100, $200 a day, really minimum, for it to be sensible to move to PMax. So you have to be comfortable with spending that. So before we finish up, a few top tips. You have to be patient. Remember, success is a series of small steps, not erratic jumps. Campaign hygiene is really important. So just because you're setting a good bid strategy doesn't mean you neglect negative keywords, ad copy testing, looking at which keywords are performing well and which aren't. These are all fundamental things. Bid strategies are just one part of a series of really important parts to building a great campaign. None of this works without proper conversion tracking. And maybe that's something I should have mentioned higher up in the video. But if you don't have conversion tracking working well, none of your smart bidding is going to work. So that's crucial. And then a good bid strategy will not save a bad campaign. It's just the way it is. A bid strategy is one part of several parts that need to be right for a campaign to be successful long term. But on the contrary, a bad bid strategy can kill a good campaign. So it is really important you get this right. And that's bid strategies covered. But now you need to focus even more, because we're covering something really important, and that's negative keywords. Negative keywords are so important, both before you launch your campaigns, but also during the ongoing maintenance of those campaigns. And before we jump into the video on negative keywords, a quick reminder that in the link in the description of this video, you can get the complete resource that covers all of our optimizations and our full checklist to do with building profitable search campaigns on Google Ads. So click the link in the description below to download that free ebook right now. And once you've done that, let's jump back in to negative keywords. If you're running Google Ads right now, there's a good chance you're paying for clicks from people that will never buy from you. People searching for free stuff, people looking for jobs at your company, people in countries you don't even ship to. And every one of these clicks is money straight from your pocket. That's what we're fixing today. This video is about negative keywords, the tool that lets you tell Google exactly who not to show your ads to. I'm going to cover what they are, how to find them, how to add them properly, and the very mistake that can hurt your campaigns if you get this wrong. So let's start by talking about how negative keywords actually work. So what is a negative keyword? In simple terms, a negative keyword tells Google not to show your ads when someone searches for a specific term or phrase. So your regular keywords work like this. Someone types a search into Google, it matches one of your keywords, Google enters the auction, and your ad potentially shows up. Negative keywords work in the opposite direction. Somebody types a search, it contains your negative keyword, and Google immediately pulls you out of that auction. Your ad doesn't show, you don't get the click, and you don't pay. So let me give you a practical example using a pickleball brand. If someone searches for pickleball paddle, that's perfect. That's exactly who we want to reach. They're looking to buy paddles, we sell paddles, everyone's happy. But if someone searches how to clean my pickleball paddle, those people aren't who we want to be targeting. These people are not suggesting they're in the market to buy a new paddle. They're not our customer. So we'd add terms like how to clean as negative keywords. Now, when someone searches for these things, our ad doesn't show up. We don't waste money on that click, and we can spend that budget on people who actually want to buy. Same thing with used pickleball paddles or pickleball paddle repair. If we only sell new equipment and we don't offer repair services, those are negative keywords. We're telling Google these people aren't looking for what we offer. Don't show them our ads. And that's the core concept. Negative keywords are your budget protection tool. They let you be selective about who sees your ads. So you're only paying for clicks from those people who are most likely to convert. And here's why this matters so much. Google's default behavior is to cast a pretty wide net with your keywords. If you're using broad match, or even phrase match, Google will show your ads to all sorts of related searches. Some good, some not so good. Negative keywords are how you rein that in and take back control. Now let's talk about how they actually work, because there are different match types and that's where it gets really important. So just like your regular keywords, negative keywords have match types too. And it's really important to understand because the keyword match type you choose for your negative keywords will determine the types of searches that get through and allow you to serve an ad, and those that are blocked and prohibit you from serving an ad. And just like your regular positive keywords, there are 3 match types: broad, phrase, and exact. Now here's the thing, they work very similarly to match types for your positive keywords, but not exactly the same. So even if you're familiar with match types for positive keywords, pay attention here because the differences are really important to understand. For this, I'm going to switch to a different e-commerce brand. Let's say we sell protein powder online. So let's say we only sell protein powder. We don't sell protein bars, energy bars, or any bar format products. So we want to block searches related to bars. So let's start by going through broad match. So our negative broad match keyword here is bars. So what's blocked? Protein bars, best bars for muscle gain, whey protein bars, bars versus powder. Then what's not blocked? Protein powder, because the word bar isn't there, or bars. Whey protein, once again, doesn't contain the word bars. Best protein supplement also is not stopped from serving because it isn't containing the word bars. So broad match looks for the word anywhere in the search. So it says, does your search contain our negative keyword bars? And if the answer is yes, anywhere, if it's in any part of the search query, then our ad is prohibited from serving. Simple as that. So broad match basically blocks the widest range of potential search queries. So next up is phrase match, and the negative phrase match keyword that I want to use is mass gainers. So you can see we're using the quotation marks here to indicate that it is a phrase match. So if we say, for example, we sell standard protein powder, we don't sell mass gainers, that's a different product. It's higher calories, it's a different formulation, different target customer entirely. So if I add mass gainer as my phrase match negative, as I said, with quotation marks, Google will only block searches where these words appear together as a phrase in that order. So best mass gainer contains the phrase mass gainer in that order, so it cannot show. Mass gainer protein once again contains our phrase match keyword in the right order, and it cannot show. Mass gainer also is blocked from serving because it contains our phrase match keyword in the correct order. Protein powder to gain mass doesn't contain our phrase match keyword, albeit it does look and sound very similar, but it's not in the correct order and it's not exactly correct. So it's gain mass as opposed to mass gainer. Protein powder doesn't contain our phrase match keyword mass gainer, so we can serve an ad. And then mass building protein powder once again doesn't contain our negative phrase match keyword mass gainer, so we can serve an ad. So phrase match requires those words to appear together in that specific order. So this is perfect when you want to block a specific product type without blocking every search that contains those individual words. So in this instance, we might not want to block words that contain the word gain or gainer or mass. But when the words are used together in combination in mass gainer, it means something completely different. So protein powder to help me gain mass would constitute whey protein or the product that we're selling. But mass gainer is a very specific term that, represents a very different product, one that we don't stock. And as such, we want to exclude that. Phrase match is one that I use actually quite often when it comes to negative keywords, as I just find it gives you great coverage without being overly broad and prohibiting you from serving on things that are kind of more relevant and things that you want to serve for. Now, let's say the word protein on its own is way too generic. Someone just searching protein could be looking for anything. They could be looking for protein rich foods, protein information, how much protein they need, whatever. But protein powder or whey protein, these are fine. These show intent to buy a supplement and perhaps our supplement. So if I add protein as an exact match negative, and that's with the square brackets here, it only blocks that one word by itself, nothing else. So it has to be that exact word or phrase in that exact order with nothing extra in the search query. So can an ad show for protein? No, because we've blocked it as exact match. Protein powder. This contains an extra term alongside our negative exact match keyword, which is protein. So that means that it doesn't block it because there's an extra term there. Whey protein is the same principle, best protein the same. So exact match is the most restrictive. It has to be exactly the same as the search with nothing added to it for the block to actually trigger. Now, here's something really important. Google does not apply close variants to negative keywords like they do with regular keywords. So with your regular keywords, if you bid on something like protein powder, Google can automatically show your ads for protein powders, plural, or even minor misspellings. They apply close variants in that instance, but with negative keywords, they don't. So if I add protein here as an exact match negative, as I have done, someone could still search for proteins, plural, as I have here, and your ad still might show. And so you have to manually add both versions, both the singular and the plural. And then the same with common misspellings. If you see protein, and you can see here I've intentionally spelt it incorrectly, it's a misspelling, you then need to add that misspelling as a term if you want to block it. And that actually applies very much to your branded negative keyword list. I'll talk about that later in the video, about adding your common misspellings to that negative keyword list as well. So which one should you actually use? Here's my approach, at least. I use phrase match as a default. It's what I use about 70-80% of the time. For me, it gives me enough control without being too restrictive. I use broad match if I see a term that I never want to include anywhere. So in this instance, it might be bars. But even in that case, you could have bars versus protein powder. Maybe that's a term that you want to serve for. You want to maybe show your benefits of your protein powder, compare it up to typical protein bars. It really does depend. I think broad match negative keywords can give you an opportunity to maybe block some search queries that could be relevant. And then I use exact match if I want to block super specific terms, but keep close variations of those terms. Or alternatively, if there's a very generic term, like in the instance of protein, that I feel is very low intent, but I don't want to use broad match because I don't want to stop every term that contains protein from triggering one of my ads, as will be the case with broad match. And the same with phrase match, it would also block anything that contains the term protein. I really don't want that as a protein powder brand. So in that instance, using exact match will be much more intelligent and beneficial. The key is thinking about what it is you're trying to block and then choosing the match type that allows you to block that query without accidentally blocking other relevant queries to your business. Because if you're too aggressive, especially with broad match, you can block traffic that you actually want. And I'll talk more about that later in the video when I go through some common mistakes. But first, let's talk about finding negative keywords before you even launch your campaigns. Because the best time to start building your negative keyword list isn't actually after you spend loads of budget on really low intent terms. It's much better to do this during your keyword research phase. So let me show you. So inside in Google Ads, I'm going to go to Tools, Planning and Keyword Planner. And then I'm going to go to Discover New Keywords. And I'll enter a few seed keywords. So I have pickleball paddles, pickleball equipment, pickleball gear. I'm going to click Get Results. Now, Google is going to show me hundreds, sometimes thousands of related keyword ideas. And this is where most people make a mistake. They only look for keywords they want to add to their campaigns. But you should also be scanning for keywords you don't want to target, because Google is essentially telling you, hey, I think all of these searches are related to your business, and you need to look through and say, actually, no, some of these are not relevant at all. So let me scroll through here and show you what I'm looking for. So we can sort these by average monthly searches, so by search volume, and you can see pickleball paddles, pickleball near me. So pickleball near me could be in relation to a brick and mortar store near you. It could be in relation to a court near you. And quite frankly, we don't supply either of those. We don't have a court. We don't have a brick and mortar. So I am going to exclude something like the term near me and block that from serving. Because you can see if we were bidding on a keyword like that, we could be paying up to $4.30 for a click. And that can be quite a lot, particularly if you're starting out, and you can waste a lot of budget if you're doing that for a number of clicks before you notice it. Some other terms I might look at, I might see some competitor terms. You see Selkirk, Jula, then phrases like pickleball nets. Maybe we don't sell nets. Maybe we only sell paddles. Custom pickleball paddles. Maybe ours are not custom. Recess pickleball is another competitor. Carbon pickleball is yet another competitor. Portable pickleball net. We don't sell nets. So I'm already picking up on terms that I don't want to serve for. So these can be added to negative keyword lists, because we don't offer lessons. We're not a physical court location. We don't run tournaments. We're not an educational resource about the game. So anything like how to play pickleball rules. Maybe we don't sell used pickleballs, so we might want to exclude things like that. Paddle rental is another thing that could come up quite commonly. We don't repair, we don't rent. We're definitely not helping people build their own. So these can all go on a negative keyword list. One thing that's actually quite helpful is you can ask Google to refine keywords. And when you do that, it can show you brand or non-brand terms, and it kind of just groups the keywords together, but it makes it much easier to actually filter and find new terms that you might add as negative keywords, or alternatively, if you are doing keyword research, as positive keywords. But obviously in this video, I want to focus more so on negative keywords. So we can see all the different brand types here. So we can see Jula, Franklin, Wilson, Diodora. We can see the retailers here, Amazon, Costco, Target. Maybe we want to exclude that. Other brands there as well. And then we have a few others here that we can look at. So used is something that comes up, 2022, 16 millimeter might be the handle maybe. So this is giving us more ideas. So just another way of, instead of trawling through all of these terms, it can group and help you, particularly finding competitor terms as well. But I do recommend spending some time. It might be 30, 45 minutes going through these keyword suggestions, because it is time well spent. You're being proactive instead of reactive, and you're identifying all of these potential budget wasters before you spend a single dollar on them. And that's way better than launching your campaign, wasting money for 2 or 3 weeks, then finally checking your search term report and realizing that you've been paying for all these irrelevant clicks. Think about your specific business situation when you're doing this research. Don't just think about what makes someone an ideal customer. Think about what makes someone not an ideal customer, and look for those signals in your keyword research. You're using Google's own data to identify irrelevant search queries for your brand, and you're adding them as negatives right from the start. Now, once you have this list, you need to organize it properly, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. Because if you just dump all these negative keywords into campaigns, it gets messy really, really quickly. You'll forget what you've added where, you'll have lots of duplicates, and then when it comes to actually making changes, you'll need to make changes across each of your individual campaigns, which just causes lots of headaches. The smart way is to organize your negative keywords into lists grouped by theme. And there's pretty much 3 negative keyword lists that every account should have. The first is a universal list. This is your master list of negatives that should apply to basically every campaign you run, regardless of what you're advertising. Now, things like free, cheap, cheapest, jobs, careers, they can all go into a universal list, but then you can start to add those specific to your business. So for our pickleball business, our universal list might also contain lessons, coaching, training, near me, clubs, rules, how to play, used, secondhand, repair, rental, DIY, clean. These are terms that we never want to serve an ad for. It's our universal list. This list gets applied to every single campaign in our account. Next up is your competitor list. This is all of your competitor brand names. So unless you're running a specific competitor campaign with tailored messaging, you probably don't want to show up when someone searches for a competitor by name. So for pickleball, that might be Selkirk, Jula, Gamma, Onyx. There are a ton more, but they are just a few examples. The reason here really is simple. When someone searches for a specific competitor brand, they're usually pretty set on that brand. Your chances of converting them are lower. You're probably paying to compete in an auction where the competitor has a higher quality score because it's their brand name. Now, don't get me wrong, competitor campaigns can work really well, particularly if you have a compelling reason why someone should buy from you as opposed to a direct competitor. If you can voice that really well in your ads, they can actually be a roaring success. But I like to keep those campaigns separate with their own messaging and their own budget. And all my regular campaigns, I want to block that competitor traffic. So I do that with this competitor list. And the third is our brand terms list. So this is your brand name and all its variations. And you might be thinking, why would I want to add my own brand as a negative? Well, you want to keep your branded searches separate in their own dedicated brand campaigns. You don't want your branded searches coming up in your non-branded search or non-branded shopping or performance max campaigns because it completely messes with the data, makes it really difficult to interpret how successful these campaigns truly are. So if your brand is called Engage Pickleball, you can include terms like engage or engage, that is, maybe a common misspelling or variation, engaged or engage pickleball, all one term. And generally what you can do is, as you find more and more, and I'll go into reviewing the search term report to help you do this, if you find more common misspellings or variations, you can then add them back to this list. Now, depending on your product range and how you structure campaigns, you also might have individual product negative keyword lists. Now, for example, if you have pickleball paddles as one product category, you might have a pickleball paddles negative keyword list in that you are blocking those terms because you have another campaign that's targeting nets or balls and you don't want any terms related to paddles going into that campaign. It really depends on how you structured your account and what your goals are. Not every account needs these, but they can be very useful if you want to keep your campaigns tightly focused. The reason we organize our lists like this is because it makes management so much easier. Let's say you start shipping to a new country or you find out a new competitor is entering the auction. Instead of individually adding these negative keywords to each campaign, and maybe it's the competitor's new name, you can just add this to your list and apply it across all of your campaigns. So you don't have to go into each campaign individually. It's clean, it's organized, and it scales as your account grows. Okay, let's get into the practical part. I'm going to show you exactly how to add negative keywords inside in Google Ads. There are 3 different levels that you can add them: account level, campaign level, and ad group level. And then there's the method that I actually recommend most often, which is using negative keywords lists inside in the shared library. So let me walk you through all of them so you understand when to use each one. Now, first of all, you can add negatives at the account level. To do this, go to admin, account settings, and scroll down to negative keywords. And you can add your negative keywords here. Anything you add here applies to all campaigns in your account automatically. You can add up to 1,000 keywords at this level. Now, you really need to be careful with this because it applies to all of your campaigns, both your existing campaigns and your future campaigns. If you want to add something here that you might want to target in a specific campaign later, you've blocked it everywhere. So performance max, shopping campaign, search, everything. So I typically use this very sparingly, maybe for things like jobs or careers, those terms that I know I never want to serve ads for with absolute certainty. But I honestly prefer using the shared library method. I'll show you it in a minute. It just gives you that little bit more control. Next up is applying negative keywords at the campaign level. So if you go into any campaign, click on keywords in the left menu. So under audience, keywords and content, click on keywords. So inside here in keywords, click on negative keywords, and we can choose to add negative keywords here or create a new list, or we can use existing lists. But if we want, we can either add negative keywords at the campaign here, or we can choose an ad group and it will let us select one of our ad groups to do just that. So we can either add it at the campaign level or at the ad group level. This is useful in certain situations, but here's the problem. If you're running multiple campaigns and you want the same negative keywords across all of them, you have to add them to each campaign individually, and that gets tedious really, really fast. If you want to update or remove a negative later, you have to go into every campaign and do it manually. So that's not ideal either. So instead, what I like to do is I like to go to tools and under shared library, go to exclusion lists. And then we have negative keyword lists here. We can create a new negative keyword list and name it. You can see I've already set up 3. I have our universal negative keyword list. I can go back. I also have our brand list. I have our competitor list here. And if I want, all I have to do is apply it to campaigns. Our active campaigns would be coming up here. We could just click them and say, okay, I want to apply them to these campaigns instead of having to add negative keywords to each individual campaign. As I said, it's very tedious. It just gets very messy very quickly. We just have to add them to this list, and then we can apply this list to multiple campaigns. And the same thing works for your branded list, your competitor list, all those lists that I mentioned. If I wanted to, I could add our universal list, our brand list, and our competitor list to one campaign. They all stack up together. So this is why the list structure is so powerful. You build these lists once, apply them to your campaigns, and then just maintain the lists. So you're not going to individual campaigns constantly, so it's much better. The great thing now is you can add negative keyword lists to Performance Max, as well as search and shopping like you always could, so you have much more control. That's everything about our lists. I've already spoken about being proactive, finding negative keywords before we even start our campaign. But even when we do that, it's never 100% perfect. We also have to react to what we're seeing. So when our campaigns are set up and live and serving on certain search queries, we need to review our search term report. So inside in any campaign that we're running, we want to look at insights and reports and then go to search terms. Search term report shows you the actual search queries that people typed into Google that caused your ad to show. So this is different from your keyword list. Those are keywords that you're bidding on. This shows what real people actually search for. Now, I do need to mention something frustrating. Google has been redacting more and more of this data over the years. You'll see a lot of searches grouped under other search terms or just not shown at all. Some accounts are missing 20, 30, 40% of their search term data, as Google says it's for privacy reasons. It's frustrating, but we have to work with what we've got. So the data you see here isn't complete, but it's still incredibly valuable. Now, how often do you check? When you start a new campaign, check every day. That's what I personally do. If I have a campaign that's more mature, it can go maybe a couple of times a week or maybe even out to weekly, depending on how well grouped your search terms have been in recent periods. But generally, I would say for new campaigns, do it very, very frequently, multiple times per week. And never stop checking completely. There's always new trends. You'd be surprised what can start to crop up. What do you do then inside in search terms? Well, you can sort by your highest spending search terms to make sure that the ones that you're spending the most money on are actually converting. You can also search for by conversion rate, so you can see which ones have the lowest conversion rate. You can set up filters here to say you can do click-through rate is less than 1%. So if click-through rate is less than 1%, and we can see our impressions are relatively high, these are pretty low in this instance, but we can say, okay, these are terms that we're serving for regularly, but nobody seems to be clicking them. Okay, we're not wasting money on them, but why are people not clicking on them? Is it that they're not relevant? In which case we need to exclude them before people do start clicking on them, even accidentally, and we start paying for them. Or do we need to improve our offer and things like that? And that's a whole other discussion for itself. So look for ones that have really low ROAS or high acquisition cost or no conversions, or you're paying a lot and you're not seeing a whole lot of conversion data come through them as well. So that's what I would say. Keep an eye out and try to do it pretty regularly. It will save you a lot of budget as you go. So before we wrap up, I need to talk about some mistakes, because if you use negative keywords wrong, it can really hurt your campaigns. Let me show you the most common ones to avoid. Mistake number one is being too aggressive too quickly. And this is the biggest mistake I see. People look at a search term that seems generic and add it as a negative keyword without waiting for any data to come behind it. Let me give you an example. You might see the word pickleball. Just that word, nothing else. Sounds pretty generic, right? But here's the thing. If you're using smart bidding along with broad match, Google has access to intent and consumer signals that you simply don't have. The person might have a search history that they've been looking at equipment, checking out reviews, maybe they've been to your store or competitor stores. Google might think that this person is actually ready to buy. And in some cases, I've seen generic terms convert really, really well. My rule is if you are on the fence, if you're thinking maybe yes, maybe not, I'm not sure, give it a small bit more time, because quite often the answer will lie in the data. You just need to wait for it to come. Being too aggressive can really limit your growth. Mistake number two is limiting short words. So you need to be careful with really common short words or phrases. Let's say you see a term like how to get better at pickleball in your search term reports, and you say, I want to block the word to, because that will help me block the how to search queries. But now you've also blocked terms like best pickleball paddle to gift, or pickleball equipment to buy, or paddles to use for beginners. Potentially you've just killed a lot of really good traffic with one careless negative. So always think about how your negative might appear in more relevant search queries or legitimate queries. Don't just think about what you're actually blocking. Think about what you might be accidentally blocking. And mistake number three is just simple. It's using the wrong match type. Using the wrong match type can either waste your budget or block good traffic. If you want to block a really specific phrase, but you use broad match instead of phrase match, you might block more than you intended. Or if you use exact match when you should have used phrase match, you're maybe not blocking enough variations. Go back to earlier in the video. Go through my examples and really try to understand the difference between each match type and when you should use each one. Because negative keywords are all about finding the right balance. You want to protect your budget from irrelevant clicks, but you don't want to be so restrictive that you miss out on potential customers. When in doubt, wait for the data. Your negative keyword list is just as important as your positive keyword list. It's one of the most powerful tools you have to control your budget, maximize efficiency, and get the highest ROAS possible in Google Ads. The accounts that do this well, the ones that build comprehensive negative keyword lists and maintain them, they consistently outperform ones that ignore it. So take the time to do it right. It's not the most exciting part of Google Ads, but it is one of the most impactful. Your campaigns are running. Maybe you're getting some clicks, even some conversions, but your cost per action, your CPA, is higher than it needs to be. This next video will break down my entire process for identifying the root cause of a CPA that's too high in an account and the immediate action steps you can take to lower it. So let's dive in. If you're running Google Ads and you've watched your CPA creep up week after week, you aren't just losing profit, you're actively paying a penalty. Here's the thing, Google doesn't sell clicks just to the highest bidder. It actually sells them to the most relevant bidder. So if your costs are rising, it's rarely solely because of the market. It's because you're failing at what we call the ad rank formula. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to diagnose the bleed by breaking down the only 3 metrics that actually matter. And I'm going to give you a step-by-step fix for each metric so that you can lower your CPAs without lowering your budget. For the past 5 years, I've used this exact diagnostic process to help 7- and 8-figure brands to scale profitably and stop wasting their ad spend. So let's get into it. So your CPA is up on search. You're reviewing your account on a Monday morning. So search or shopping, let's say. So what are you going to do? So quite often people are going to panic. They're going to pull back budgets. They're going to say, okay, well, if my CPA is this high, I can't afford to spend. I need to pull back my budget from $100 a day to $50 a day. That is not the first thing you should be doing. I understand if you're losing money hand over fist, you need to start peeling back budgets, correct? But you need to understand the root of the problem, because just because you're pulling back spend doesn't mean you're actually fixing the problem. If anything, you're just masking over it. So what I like to do is break down what CPA actually means. So your cost per action. So in this instance, we're going to say it's a purchase. Okay, so we're an e-commerce store and it's our cost per purchase. So our cost per purchase is dependent on our cost per click divided by our conversion rate. So an example of that is our cost per click is on average $1 and our conversion rate is 4%. So that's 0.04. That's going to give us a $25 CPA. Now, if we increase this figure to $2, or if we decrease our conversion rate to 2%, well then what we're going to do is double this figure here of $25 CPA, and that's going to jump up to a $50 CPA. So you can see here that we need to focus on these two figures, and then this figure here will take care of itself. So what do we need to do? We need to either decrease our cost per click, or we need to increase our conversion rate. And ideally, we'd like to do both, because if we can do both, well then we're going to have a much more profound effect on this figure here, our cost per action. So in order to kind of get to the crux of that, I want to start with something called ad rank in Google. So ad rank is a set of values from Google to determine if and where your ad will show. So there's a number of things that actually affect ad rank. So some of them down here, ad rank thresholds. You have to meet a certain threshold to actually be eligible to partake in an auction. The competitiveness of the auction. So naturally, if there's more of your competition entering that same space, it's a very highly competitive keyword. Well, then it's going to cost you that bit more. The search context is important. So essentially what Google is trying to do is match the user's behavior, where they're searching from, what they're searching for, to your campaign or your ad, to make sure that contextually it matches up. But for the most part, I want to talk about your bid and your ad quality, because to me, these have the two most profound effects on ad rank, and ad rank determines if and where you serve on Google. So your bid and your ad quality. So generally speaking, there are two options to improve your ad rank. So you can either focus on your bid by paying more, but essentially we know that that's just going to cause us to burn through cash. So instead, what we're going to do is focus on ad quality. So ad quality is measured in Google by improving quality score. So if we want to improve quality, we need to focus on something called quality score. And quality score is essentially a grading system given to each of your keywords by Google to let you know how your ad quality is deemed across some certain different metrics. So we'll get into each of them right now. So the three metrics that underpin quality score are your landing page experience, your ad relevance, and your expected click-through rate. So there is no hard and fast rule of what percentage each makes up, but generally speaking, what I've found from speaking to other advertisers, what I found myself has the most profound impact is improving either landing page experience or expected click-through rate, and then to a lesser degree, ad relevance. Now they're all quite important. I just find that there's slightly more weight placed on this guy, landing page experience, and this guy over here, expected click-through rate. So how do we view it? So the quality score is determined at the keyword level. So what we do is we're going to go into one of our search campaigns, and then we're going to go through into an ad group. And once we're inside in the ad group, we're going to see our different keywords. We're going to see performance by keywords. What we're going to need to do is go into our columns and go down here to quality score. So within quality score, then we'll be able to actually pull up the total quality score and then the three underlying metrics. So expected click-through rate, landing page experience, and then ad relevance. And now you can see these have been added to our columns here. So you can see our quality scores here are ranging from 5 out of 10 to 10 out of 10. And we can see we get a grade of either above average, average, or below average for each of expected click-through rate, landing page experience, and ad relevance. This is really useful for us because it's Google telling us what parts of our quality score we can improve to bring up that total quality score number and actually improve our ad rank. And we know that if we can improve our ad rank, we will get cheaper CPCs. Okay, so back to the mirror board, here we are. And as I said, if you pull that up at your keyword level, you'll be able to see where our work-ons are. So we know if we want to improve our quality score, ideally we're working towards a 10 out of 10, meaning that we're going to be above average across all metrics. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to break it down by each individual component. So I'm going to start with ad relevance. So if you have an average or below average score when it comes to ad relevance, the cause of that is the semantic difference between the search query and the ad itself being too grand or too big. So what do I mean by semantic difference? It's like essentially the search query is not closely enough related to the ad. So if someone is searching for Nike trail running shoes size 11 and you're showing them marathon shoes in size 9, well then there's the semantic difference is relatively large there because the sizing is off, the type of shoe is off. So it's quite a big difference. Google deems you as having an ad that isn't relevant to the user. You have to understand that Google wants to create ads that are relevant because it's all part of giving the end user a positive browsing experience. So not just a positive experience with organic listings and making sure they're really relevant, but if Google starts to show ads that aren't relevant to users, well then those users are going to go elsewhere for their search engines. So it's really important that Google is giving relevant ads the credit they deserve, because ultimately it feeds into Google's bigger goal of creating a really relevant ecosystem for its users. So what do we actually need to do then if we're seeing an ad relevance that's either average or below average? These are some tips. The first thing is implement single theme asset groups or ad groups. So if it's a search campaign, it's ad groups. If it's PMAX campaign, it's asset groups. But basically what we want to do is we want to have a series of keywords. I generally say 5 to 8 tops. Any more than that, I feel like I can't get keywords that are closely enough related, because you have to bear in mind that someone searching for one of your keywords and someone else searching for another one of your keywords will be shown the same ad. So if someone's searching for a keyword related to Nike trail shoes and someone's searching for a keyword related to Nike marathon shoes, it's very difficult for you to put an ad together that speaks really well to both of those individuals, because a marathon shoe might need, more cushioning, more shock absorption. A trail running shoe might need more ankle stability. It's a completely different shoe. So having one ad that speaks to both of those people is going to be very difficult. So instead, what you need to do is have a theme for each ad group. So a theme might be marathon running shoes. Another theme or another ad group might be trail running shoes. So look at how well you can split out your themes and then look at your ad. So take your keyword, and if you've got 5 or 6 keywords, take each individual keyword and say, okay, if someone was searching for this keyword and they saw my ad that I have written for this ad group, is that relevant? And if the answer is no, or you're not sure, well then it doesn't belong in that ad group. It needs to be moved out into its own ad group. If the answer is yes, I think it's super relevant, then that's fine. What I say, as I said, look, do not mix broad intent, so something very general with something very specific, because once again, it's the same principle. It's very hard to write an ad that appeals to the masses while simultaneously appealing to a really specific cohort of individuals. So try not to mix very broad terms like running shoes, very generic terms, with very specific terms like I have here, a red trail running shoe size 10 US, very specific in comparison to running shoes. The next thing is add dynamic keywords to your ad copy. And what these do is essentially the keyword that gets flagged or triggered to serve your ad for actually gets spun back out in your ad copy. So you can say, for example, if your keyword is marathon shoes, then you can have your headline perhaps say buy and then dynamic keyword marathon shoes, but also it makes it relevant to whatever keyword was triggered. So ideally all our keywords should be really closely related, but dynamic keywords are one extra step to making sure that if there is a slight difference between our keywords, that when possible, our keyword that's most relevant to the ad gets actually sewn back into the ad copy itself. And then the last thing that I do, and this is more kind of a hygiene basis, and you should do this all the time regardless, is you should be auditing your search terms. So what queries are actually triggering our ads to serve? So if there's lots of terms with lots of different meanings across a broad spectrum of queries, of products, of things like that, then we need to consider where these terms are coming from. Is there one keyword or two keyword that's bringing in a lot of this dud traffic that's very distinct, very different to the rest of the traffic in this ad group? And if so, then we need to consider splitting that out into its own ad group if it is relevant. If it's not relevant traffic at all, then we just need to maybe get rid of that keyword. But you need to be looking all the time at your search terms to make sure that not only are your keywords closely related, but the terms that are triggering your ads to show are also pretty closely related as well. So that's how you bump up ad relevance. I know I said it's perhaps the least important, but it's one of the quickest to fix. You really should be making the effort to do so, because bumping that up will just help bring up your overall quality score. The next thing is your expected click-through rate. So if it is average or below average score, particularly below average score, Google predicts your ad will get fewer clicks than competitors in the same position. So if you were to serve an ad or your competitor was to serve an ad, Google would predict that you have a below average chance of getting a click relative to your competitors in that auction. And you don't want that to happen. If Google is expecting you to get less clicks, well, then it deems your ad to be less relevant, less high quality, and you're going to get penalized as well. So what are we going to do to improve our expected click-through rate? One thing that we can do, it's almost very primitive, is we can add more relevant site links, more callouts, add extensions. What ad extensions are, they're very like what the name suggests, is that they are little snippets of information that you add to your ad. And the basis of it is that it should give the end user more information as to why they might click on your ad. Your site links can bring them into different locations. Your call outs highlight maybe some USPs or some interesting kind of offers you might have. But the primitive side of it is that it just takes up more digital real estate. It takes longer to scroll past an ad if it has 4 or 5 site links, if it has 2 or 3 lines worth of description and call outs and everything like that, it actually increases the probability of clicking through. So that's one very simple thing you can do. The next thing that you should be doing, and this is part of your auditing of your search terms, is if you have a high volume of impressions but low click terms. So you can set up a filter for, okay, impressions over 100 or over 1000 and click-through rate less than 0.5% or 0.4% or something very, very low. And you can obviously increase or decrease those filters. But look for terms that are getting you a lot of impressions but not a lot of clicks. Now, is there a reason that those terms are getting very few clicks? Is it that they're not relevant to what it is you're trying to say in your ads, or you don't have a compelling enough offer for that particular term? Whatever it is, quite often it's the former. It's that it's not actually too relevant, that traffic, in which case you need to add negative keywords to prevent that traffic serving. Because if you have these terms that are consistently flagging your ads to serve, and then users are consistently skipping over them and not clicking on them, well, that's going to hurt your actual click-through rate. And your actual click-through rate is one of the biggest indicators for Google of what your expected click-through rate is, because basically it's Google looking back and going, well, historically this ad hasn't performed very well, so in the future I also anticipate that it won't perform very, very well. So that's another thing that I would do, is review your search terms and look for those high volume impressions, low click terms that are hurting your expected click-through rate. The next thing then is more deeper, it's more general, it's more kind of understanding around the actual market itself. So what you need to do is you need to look at what your competitors are saying for these terms, what their ads are. So basically just go onto Google and search your keywords in and see about your competitors who come up. What are they offering? What is their ad copy? What's their angle? What's their USP? What's their shipping threshold? What are they saying in their ad that could have a more compelling argument for someone to click on their ad as opposed to yours? If there is anything at all that you feel like you could highlight to stand out from competitors to make your offer more compelling, well, then you need to be including that in your ads, because that will increase your expected click-through rate and your actual click-through rate. So reviewing your ad copy, your offers compared with competitors, that's really important, because you need to give people a reason to click. It's all well and good, these tips and tricks about, taking up more digital real estate and making it more difficult for your ad to be passed by. But ultimately, you need to get to the crux of the issue, which is there's an offer issue, or there's a value prop that isn't being conveyed well enough, or you're just not positioning yourself in a way or a light that it favors your brand versus your competitors. So that's fundamental to improving your expected click-through rate. And the last thing then is your landing page experience. So once again, if it's average or below average score, you have generally got one of a few things. You have a really high bounce rate on site, you've slow load times, or lack of semantic continuity from the search query to your ad to your landing page. So that's very similar to ad relevance, only you're extending it one place further and bringing it to landing page. So basically what you need to do here is look for some kind of fundamental issues. So to do with kind of page load speed. So if your page is not loading quickly at all, then people are going to bounce before they even get on. So you need to identify that being an issue first. Page speed insights is a really good place to do that. It can give you some quick feedback on what's causing a very low or a very prolonged load speed. But then the next thing that you're going to need to do is look at the content continuity. Basically, is there clear continuity between, as I said, your search query, your ad, and your landing page? So if a user is searching for trail running shoes and my ad says trail running shoes and they get sent to a collection page of marathon shoes, well, then that is not going to work. That is going to be a really poor landing page experience, because it's not going to match, I suppose, what the promise was made in the ad, and it's just not relevant to their search query. So either they're going to bounce from that page, they're going to bounce straight off site, or they're going to go somewhere else, but they're not going to have a really positive experience. Their chance of conversion is lower. So not only are you impacting your quality score, you're also impacting your conversion rate, your likely conversion rate. So you need to have a clear continuity all the way across that funnel. So sometimes it's as simple as just changing the H1 on your product page to make it more closely aligned with the theme of your ad group. That can have a really good impact, and it's very, it's actually very low impact for you as either the Google Ads team or the CMO or the brand owner. That's something that you can do, or you can just make sure that you're sending people to the most relevant page on your site. The next thing then is review your offer on page. This could be a cause for bounce. So if your offer in your ad copy isn't very strong compared to your competitors, then you won't get the clicks. But if your offer on your landing page is weak, well, then people won't convert and they'll bounce. So if you want to dig a little deeper into where people are bouncing, what actions they're taking on your landing pages on your site, then something like Hotjar or Microsoft Clarity is good for heat mapping to give you a little bit of insight into what's going on. But before I do all that, definitely just make sure your web vitals are okay. Also make sure you have good continuity, and that just the general kind of parts of your offer are solid, and you're giving people something that would make them want to convert. So just if you don't have a solid conversion rate on organic traffic, don't expect all of a sudden for that conversion rate to be really solid on Google or Facebook traffic, paid traffic in general. So review your offer, but then of course, if you do want to go a little deeper, look at heat mapping, as I said, Hotjar or Microsoft Clarity. So the first thing that we have to do is understand that CPA is essentially a factor of our cost per click and our conversion rate. And we know that if we want to decrease our CPA, which ultimately will increase ROAS, is by decreasing our CPC, our cost per click, or increasing our conversion rate. Now, I've gone through quality score and I have discussed how improving quality score basically means that you don't have to worry half as much about your bid. So if we can increase ad quality by improving quality score, then we don't have to pay more. And not just we don't have to pay more, we actually get rewarded with cheaper clicks. So if we can improve our quality score, right, we're going to get cheaper clicks, but we're also going to have a landing page experience that's better for people. We're going to have ad relevance that's better for people. We're going to have an expected click-through rate that's higher than our competitors, which is going to feed back into having really high quality ads as deemed by Google, which is going to feed back into our quality score, which is going to make our clicks cheaper. What we're doing here by increasing quality score is lowering our bid required, so lowering our CPC. But also what we're inadvertently doing is we're making sure our funnel is squeaky clean and it's going to be high converting. So we're actually going to be increasing our conversion rate too. So not only are we looking at improving quality score to decrease our cost per click, we're also looking at improving quality score to increase our conversion rate. And if we can do both of those things, well, then what we're going to have is a profound impact in a positive light when it comes to our cost per action or our cost per purchase in Google. You're still with me and I appreciate that. And because of it, I'm going to share with you our new strategy for running Google Ads in an era of AI overviews, LLM responses, long tail keywords, changing customer journeys. This changes everything about how you should be growing your account. So let's dive into the strategy. Google Ads has changed a lot in 2025. New automation rules, smarter bidding strategies, and completely different ways to structure your accounts. In this video, I'll show you the new way to run Google Ads in 2026 so you can finally get consistent, profitable results with no wasted spend and no guesswork. So first things first, we need to understand the way that people search has fundamentally changed. Back in 2020, it was all about keyword focused searches. You type in running shoes or best trainers and that was it. But now in 2025 and beyond, we're having actual conversations with AI. It's like having a real-time personal shopper with you. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Google's AI mode has completely changed how your funnel works. And if you're not adapting to it, you're missing out on massive opportunities. Watch this. I'm going to use Google's AI mode to speak with AI. I am training for a marathon and need a good cushioned trainer to support my Achilles that won't cost more than $150 in black or blue. See that? That's not a keyword search. That's a proper conversation. Shopping journeys now begin with these AI conversations, giving Google far more context, far more intent than we've ever had before. And people are refining these searches multiple times per session, having back and forth conversations with AI. But here's the thing, the final transaction is still largely unchanged. When I'm ready to buy, I'm still going to search something like Buy Nike Pegasus 41 white size 10. So the bottom of the funnel is unchanged, but the whole customer journey, the fundamentals of that are vastly different to what they were 5 years ago. And look at this visual. It perfectly shows exactly what's happening. In 2020, searches started with simple keywords. Someone would type wireless headphones and that was it. But now in 2025, we get conversations with AI shoppers. Instead of just wireless headphones, people are saying, I need wireless headphones with 6 hours of battery life that won't fall out during intense cardio. See the difference? In 2020, we had these basic keyword focused searches. And nowadays, we have conversational queries, giving us incredible insight into what people actually want and need. And this is why your old approach isn't working anymore. So more about that old stale approach that just isn't cutting it anymore. This is the method that most of you are probably still using. We used to obsess over SKAGs, those single keyword ad groups. And then we'd have different match types in different ad groups. We'd be reviewing search terms every single day, relentlessly adding negative keywords to our campaigns. We were doing manual bidding with constant penny bid adjustments and just micromanaging all over our account. The mentality was to control everything and leave nothing to chance. But this no longer works in 2025. And the reason why is that you get a problem with over segmentation. And that is that your data becomes siloed. You're interrupting learning periods with constant changes, and you're missing these incredible conversational search queries because of your really tight keyword matching. And what's the result? Poor performance and endless frustration. Does that sound familiar? And this is exactly why you need to embrace the new approach. You see, the new approach is all about working with Google's AI, not against it. We focus all on quality inputs, first-party data, conversion tracking, your core fundamentals. Instead of single keyword ad groups, we've moved to single theme ad groups. We're embracing broad match keywords, smart bidding, because we know that over time, the AI will outperform our previous manual adjustments. We're consolidating our structure with fewer campaigns, but the inputs we're giving are more strategic. Our mentality has shifted vastly. We're shaping the positive outcomes through strategy, not micromanagement. Now, let me show you exactly how to implement this with my 4-phase roadwork. Right, so here's the complete roadmap we're going to follow. Think of this as your journey from where you are now to where you want to be. So phase 1 is your data foundation. This is where we set up proper conversion tracking, feed Google our first party data. Without this, nothing else works. Phase 2 is our manual ramp up. We start with manual bidding strategies to build up conversion volume and let AI learn about our business. Phase 3 is about a transition to smart ramp up. This is where we switch to automated bidding, start using broad match keywords because now the AI has enough data to work with. And phase 4 is all about account expansion. Now we're looking to scale what works and adding new campaigns to grow our reach and get more eyes on our business. Each phase is building on the last one and you can't skip phases. Trust me, I've seen people jumping to phase 3 and even phase 4 and it simply never works. So let me walk you through each phase in detail. Phase 1 is all about your data foundation. You must absolutely have proper conversion tracking set up with enhanced conversions and server-side tracking. This simply isn't optional anymore. You also need to feed Google your first-party data. Tell Google exactly who your customers are so that Google can then go out and find people who look just like them. Without this foundation, everything else falls apart. Phase 2 is your manual ramp up. For new accounts, manual bid strategies work best. Start with manual CPC or max clicks because your goal here is to increase conversion volume, aiming for at least 30 monthly conversions. And this is where patience becomes crucial. Don't micromanage the AI during this phase, just let it learn. I know it's tempting to make changes every single day, but please resist the urge. The performance benefits will pay you back in the long term. Because once you get through phase 2, which normally lasts about 30 to 60 days, then you move on to our smart ramp up. And this is where you really start to notice the difference in performance. Because now you're moving to automated bid strategies like max conversion value, target ROAS, target CPA. And this is when you can also start adding some broad match keywords alongside your smart bidding strategies. With 4 to 6 weeks in this phase, you'll really notice performance becoming much more predictable, your results improving consistently, and this is because the AI is finally being given enough time and data to work with. And phase 4 is where the real magic happens. You're scaling your winning campaigns by gradually increasing budgets. You can start adding new campaign types like performance max, demand gen. You're moving up the funnel. And this is when we love to really focus on additional conversational search reach, going after those more conversational type queries and directing people to advertorials, which convert so well for us and bring people through the funnel. And with YouTube's vast reach, you can also start layering in some additional video campaigns. And now you're really beginning to see Google Ads for all it's worth. But you see, it's all about this fundamental mindset shift. Here's what the best media buyers understand in 2025 moving into 2026. You're training a machine and garbage in equals garbage out. We've heard it so many times when it comes to training ChatGPTs and custom GPTs. Everyone talks about having really solid inputs. But when it comes to Google Ads, everybody seems to forget that. So it's not just having really solid inputs that's important. You also have to consolidate. Your data needs to be able to speak to each other, because more campaigns doesn't mean better performance, and often is the case, it actually is worse. And with this mindset shift, you just simply need to be more patient. You're a strategist now, you're not a button pusher. You understand that the AI takes time, but you also understand the positive downstream effects of giving it that time. Now you know the complete launch protocol of a search campaign in Google Ads in the new era of AI. From keyword research to exact campaign setup to bid strategies and ad copy. But here's the reality. The real work happens after the launch. Managing bids, testing new keywords, refining your ad copy, and scaling up your account without ruining your results. It takes a lot of time and daily attention. If you want to focus on running your business and not spend your days stuck to ad dashboards, then book a call with us today. Let us handle it for you. We can take this off your plate and get you better results faster. If you're serious about growing your business to 7, 8, or even 9 figures with the help of Google Ads, check out a link in this video description and book a free strategy call with me today. Let's talk about your goals and map out a path to get you there. And if you found this course helpful, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.